Hello, hello. Howdy rowdy, Cub Scouts. We're going low energy today. I hope you're having a wonderful start to your week. Hold on, there we go. Hey, hello. Oh man, I am happy to be winding back with y'all and just kind of look at some new D&D stuff. We had a little bit of D&D yesterday, and today we're changing up the D&D vibe a little bit. Normally when I do D&D, I'm always like either making a map or like running a game or playing a game. If you've seen my Ultimate Academy or my Unicorn Hope VODs. But today I want to move a little bit back and just look at some new content that's come out. There's been a lot of hoopla about the new Spelljammer book, and they announced a new version of D&D that is I think like being set up for playtest, or the playtest materials are available. I'm not really sure. I wanted to go into this stream super duper blind. I mean, as blind as I could. Admittedly, I could not keep myself blind to everything. People were shouting about stuff all the time. It was wild, but it's going to be great. And that is what we're doing today. So it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter stream because it's going to be going through a book and maybe a video or two. We'll see. Let me go ahead and get our thing up. There we are. Hold on. There we go. Just a little bit in the way. And there you go. I don't have like a script or anything planned. I'm just going to be shooting off the wall. And I'll be giving my opinions on, I guess, rules is written, everything that's like featured in the book. I'm a bit of a naysayer. I like to give constructive criticism wherever I can, even if in general stuff is pretty good, and I've heard pretty good things about Spelljammer. So I don't want this to be like a justification or an implication that I'm like not a fan of the setting, or you shouldn't buy this book because it's dumb and stinky. It's probably good. It's probably good overall. And I mean, more customization and stuff is always going to be nice for any kind of player. But I'm mostly going to just like look at it from the lens of the narrow scope of D&D experience that I do have as someone who runs a fair amount of home games and typically deals with sort of quasi homebrew settings. Some people are kind of in love with things like the Forgotten Realms and Sword Coast. I don't even know if they're the same thing to demonstrate how much I don't really tune in to the official Wizards of the Coast settings. I did like one Ravnica game that I guess was in an established setting, but all the other games that I typically run have been in like non-standard settings or like homebrew settings. So I'm just looking at it in terms of like it's how all the features integrate into the system. We're just gonna do it on a list. I'm not gonna be talking about the sort of adventuring section, and like, because a lot of the book talks about the setting. I'm just gonna be going over the new character options, because those are kind of things that can be carried into any campaign. And basically the rest of the book is talking about the Spelljammer setting specifically, but I don't really have enough experience about, and if I tried to read enough about it to provide that kind of expertise, this would be like a 14-hour stream at least. So let's save all of ourselves a bit of a headache, and we're just gonna focus on the character options that are sort of like universal. They can be applied to any setting. And there's a bit of a spoiler. You can see the Thri-Kreen here. Because that's one of the official races that a friend of mine, Sigbur, you can definitely follow Sigbur as well. I might even give him a shout out if I have the announcements set up. Where's my stuff? There you go. Where is my boy Sig? Where is my boy Sig? Wait, where's my boy Sig? I don't have Sig. What? Well, I could always just shout him out using the old dumb fashion method of actually typing and remembering what his name is. There you go. Hey, Sigma Jump. Howdy rowdy. Thank you for checking out the stream. And also, thank you very much for the follow. Because you followed yesterday. Don't think I didn't fucking see that you followed yesterday. Right as I ended the stream, you followed and I caught wind. I caught wind of it, so... You thought you were sneaky, but you ain't. But howdy. Yes, we're going over the character options. And one of the character options is a bit of a spoiler. I already know basically everything about them because one of my players, Sigber, plays as a Thri-Kreen in our Ultimate Academy setting. Well, thank you for randomly checking out the stream then. I am happy to see some support. So, let's go ahead and just get started, I suppose. When you create a character for a campaign or an adventure set in the wild space or the astral sea, you can choose from any of the options that the D&D game provides, including those described in this chapter. As always, you should check with your DM before creating a character to make sure the options you prefer are available, which is, you know, a nice, good catch-all. And it's actually interesting talking about the astral sea specifically, because I used to be like a 4E baby. I'm a 4E baby. I played a little bit of 3.5 when I was just getting started, but a lot of my experience, I would argue most of my experience playing Dungeons and Dragons was using the 4th edition rule set, which I know is very controversial. I like 4th edition, and maybe we'll get into that because I hear that maybe 1D&D might be backtracking it just a little bit. Hey, Sig! How you doing? Thank you for coming to the stream. We're going to be talking about all of the different factions and races and why they're, you know, thumbs up or poop. I don't know. But yeah, the Astral Sea I think is really interesting to explore because I was a 4E baby. My stream title. Did I not stream? Oh, I didn't update my stream info. Thank you for letting me know, Sig. I had set up my title and then I forgot to actually update it. Literally sitting like a tweet that I just didn't confirm on. Wow. All right. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's our quota of scuff for the stream. But yes, the Astral Sea. In fourth edition, the Astral Sea is generally just what you dealt with. The Astral Plane, which is sort of a different thing in 5th edition, is much more commonplace, but in 4th edition, it was just called the Astral Sea. Kind of the same idea, sort of demi-plane. It's like a sort of almost like a purgatory. And so it's nice to see this specific term being brought up again. I'm sure it behaves differently than the Astral Sea was in 4th edition, but just a little bit of pang of nostalgia for me seeing Astral Sea here. All right, and look at this art. We've got the hippo, we've got the Thri-Kreen, we've got basically Spock with super bright neon hair. This is illogical for camouflage. Well, maybe in this planet it's not. This planet's crazy vibrant. And you got the monkey. I have so much to say about the monkey. I've had players talking to me about monkeys, how crazy they are, and I've seen 1 or 2 videos. I just couldn't help myself, and they're kind of crazy. I have some things to say about monkeys. We will get to them. Spacefaring adventurers leave their damselfly ship, don't know what that is, behind and explore a new world in pursuit of their latest quest. All right, before we talk about any of the races, there's some new backgrounds available. Let's talk about those. Before we get into the specific backgrounds, I do kind of want to throw a precursor there. I really hope that that the backgrounds that they have here are more narrative focused. I have seen, especially in things like Ravnica, I think, as well as in Strixhaven, which was a bit of an inspiration for the Ultimate Academy backgrounds. They had backgrounds that ultimately, like, their special feature is they just let you take a feat for free. And that's really good, especially if the feat itself is strong. And I kind of miss when, like, the old PHB backgrounds where everything was like narrative based. Like, instead of having any mechanical benefit or like jotting down numbers or learning new spells and stuff, you just had a thing that you could like point to help push the narrative along. And I think it's nice to have those kinds of tools, especially when you're dealing with players that like have that, you know, want to take a bit of that agency and have a way to sort of exert that narrative control, which I think is a nice exercise to have for playing the game. I think if I were to put my thinking cap on and pretend I was Wizards of the Coast, I would imagine those things didn't work so well for veteran players who are more likely to buy these like expansion books, just because like they don't need any support helping with the narrative, and so they opted to provide more power gamey backgrounds. But I like it. I like having narrative backgrounds with narrative features. Just as long as it's, you know, you make it clear that that's a feature you have. You make it as prominent as any other feature you have, so that your DM's aware of it, and then they can take advantage of it, and they can give you opportunities where you can make really good use of it. All right, let's talk about the Astral Drifter. For longer than you can remember, you have traversed the Astral Sea. There, you experienced firsthand the wonders of the Silver Void, whatever that is. You stopped aging and no longer felt hunger or thirst. Driven by wanderlust, you drifted from one part of the Astral Sea to another, like a mote of dust on the wind. You have lost count of the decades that have passed since you arrived here. In your travels, you have camped on the petrified husks of dead gods, and narrowly escaped the psychic winds that swept across the natural sea, while also avoiding prolonged contact with the plane's most dangerous denizens. So you freaking went to free parking on God's corpses, and you're like, no, that's not. There's still more dangerous shit out there. All right. You get skill proficiency in Insight and Religion. That makes sense. 2 of your choices. Celestial or Gith is recommended. For the setting specific title, it makes sense. This seems very specific to the setting, and I can see sort of already that Wild Space is also specific to the setting. Equipment: a set of traveler's clothes, a diary, an ink pen, a bottle of ink, and a pouch containing 10 gold pieces. All right, we got our first major feature. You are 20d6 years older than you look because you have spent that much time in the Astral Sea without aging. Okay, so there's a little bit of there's a little bit of bait here. If you do the quick math, that adds up to maybe about 70 years on average. And this just kind of reminds me of the anime trope where it's like you have the dragon that looks like an 8-year-old girl, and she's just like, I'm actually like 4,200 years old. I just look like a prepubescent teen. And this is giving me those flashbacks. It's fine, like mechanically. It's just age is just a number, literally, as far as D&D systems go. But it gives me that flag. It's not a red flag, but it's a flag that's being hoisted up, and I get a little spooked, but it's fine. A feature: Divine Contact. Here we go. What was I just saying? You get the Magic Initiate feat from the player's handbook and must choose Cleric for the feat, so that ties into the Religion skill proficiency. Not a red flag, it's many red flags. Yeah, I guess when enough red flags show up, it just looks like a streak. In the Astral Sea, you cross paths with a wandering deity. Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, longevity, people who take this background probably should be like, you know, in their like in their hundreds, you know, depending on the race you are. But like, if you wanted to use this longevity, you'd have to like justify being like, if you wanted to use this to look like a kid, you'd have to justify making it to the Astral Sea as a child, which is a weird thing to experience. I wonder, I mean, you could probably make that part of your monastic tradition, but it seems slightly suspect, especially if you wanted to be part of an adventuring group. It kind of requires you to split off just a little bit. Because the big question you have is like, why are you leaving the Astral Sea at this point? That's sort of the immediate question that comes up. But yeah, I'm imagining that people who would take this would be like, you know, 90 100 or more years old while looking to be in their like mid-20s or early 30s. They wanted to have that, like, I don't know, like Asian mom appeal, where they're way older than they look. All right, so you get cleric, and it continues. In the astral sea, you crossed paths with a wandering deity. The encounter was brief and non-violent, yet it made a lasting impression on you. This deity saw fit to share one secret or obscure bit of cosmic lore with you. Work with your DM to determine the details of this knowledge and its impact on the campaign. Roll on the divine contact table to determine which deity you encountered, or work with your DM to identify a more suitable choice. So, this is sort of what I was talking about right now, right? So, this is a sort of narrative aspect of the background. You get an encounter with a wandering deity, which you can, you know, talk with your DM about. And this sounds familiar. It doesn't have any mechanical benefit. It reminds me, for example, of like the Haunted background. The Haunted background was a PHB background, which made it so that you had like some terrible event that happens to you, or a terrible omen that revolves around you that has like haunted your life since you were born or since the event occurred. And that would have a narrative impact, because you would want to work with your DM to decide what that narrative event is and how it plays into the greater central story of whatever campaign you happen to be in. But it also had a mechanical benefit. They had this passage which talking about like people who would look into you would like see the tragedy in your eyes, and they might be intimidated by the presence of that evil force, or they might take pity on you and offer things like food and shelter if you needed to. Which might like play into like your lifestyle expenses and stuff like that, or might provide social opportunities to be introduced to members of the common folk, or even nobles who had a particular sense of pity and chivalry. But this one is just narrative, and on the mechanic side, it ties into the astral sea. It ties into the narrative, because this sort of leans into that secret or obscure bit of cosmic lore, but it's like a system benefit. It feels a little, I don't want to say lazy, but it is, I think, telling that a lot of features, and this is a bit hypocritical coming from me, because all of the backgrounds that I have in my Ultima Academy document basically give you a feat as well. But they just give you a feat and call it a day. They have a narrative element, and then they give you some mechanical feat or similar power that is akin to an existing feature. And I'm sort of the pot calling the kettle black here, because I do that all the time. I do that with my backgrounds, and I do it with all my class bonuses and club bonuses for Ultima Academy. A lot of those things are borrowed from existing class features or existing feats. So, you know, nothing. That's why I don't want to say it's lazy, but I think it's. I worry about like the sort of the power creep element of it. And this is, again, just in the context of like rules as written and stuff like that, if you're like a Wargamers table, because like for more narrative groups, or for just like well-rounded groups, it's usually easy enough to like, you know, work outside the bounds of the book and the system to make sure that everyone feels on equal footing, whether it's like through special narrative elements or items and stuff like that. It's very easy to bring everyone on the same level, even if there's like power creep moving towards like some people who are choosing later features and backgrounds and classes that have kind of cooler stuff. You see that similarly, I think, with a lot of the old players handbook features, or like subclasses rather, like the rogue thief, for example. I love rogue thieves, but I think that because that was like the first archetype introduced, they're a little starved for abilities. They're quite limited in the abilities that they have. I mean, rogues, of course, in general, are pretty good, so that's why I'll never be sad to have a thief in my party. But it's a bit stark when you compare a thief's powers to, say, like a swashbuckler or like a soul knife, and similar things with things like champions or like berserkers. Like the barbarian berserker has it extra rough because of the exhaustion that they have. It's crazy. Anyway, so this one looks to be talking about different gods that are on, and they mention what seems to be existing gods from established settings. I recognize Coralon, I recognize Arwen, I recognize Timora, I recognize these. I don't know if they're in the same setting as Spelljammer, or if Spelljammer, maybe Spelljammer is like a quasi sort of all-encompassing setting. It kind of fits the wild space theme, that like, yeah, you find yourself in, you know, in this crazy astral sea where all the gods just are hanging out, all the deities are dabbling, but so you can see gods from many different settings and many different realms and stuff like that. Although I find it interesting that I think like people like Coralon and Timora, like they're like prominent deities. They show up a lot, don't they? I mean, they're not like Bahamut or like Orcus or who's the last one? Who am I thinking of? The giant dragon lady with the bajillion heads. I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. But like, they're not as prominent as those people. The person whose name I don't remember, but they're important and famous, and it's surprising that they would be included in the list of like people that are just wandering around that you would just show up and find. I think it's interesting. I also think it's worth interesting that there's only one lawful choice here. This god of knowledge and secrets. It might be tying into the players. I haven't seen too many players play lawful characters. This is just an observation of mine. So maybe they're seeding their their characters well, or their deities well, based on the kind of alignments that most people play. Not very many of them, as I see, tend to go on the lawful aspect. They usually do like chaotic or neutral. No, oh, they have like everything else, right? They have lawful good. They're missing lawful good and lawful neutral. No, they're missing lawful evil, rather. Lawful good and lawful evil are missing. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, they're missing another one. What? I'm not thinking of it. They have neutral good and chaotic good. They have neutral. Oh, they're missing chaotic neutral. That's surprising. There's always a chaotic neutral player in a group. It's like a conservation of alignment. It's like a conservation law in D&D. You always get one chaotic neutral person. So those are my thoughts. It's fine. I mean, it's basically mage initiate plus with a religious feat. I mean, you're basically just a tiny bit of cleric, which is fine. I could easily see scenarios where you use this and you take you know, like healing word, and you get like a nice free long distance heal that you can use at level 1, even if you're not like a class. Like it's like specifically because it's cleric. I think there's like 1 or 2 really good spells that cleric has that you can use as a bonus action, which is a nice way to round out the economy of certain classes that might not have much use for their you know what I mean, for their bonus actions. And that's Astral Drifter. Moving on to Wild Spacer, which sort of Wild Spacer sounds like when I hear Wild Spacer, it reminds me of like that guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. Freaking, I don't know why I'm thinking of Ned Flanders, the guy from The Simpsons, but the guy who's being played by Chris Pratt. The guy's being played by the guy who's gonna be playing Mario. And I think I want to say it's not a coincidence they chose a Githyanki who like kind of closely represents Gamora from the Guardians of the Galaxy to represent the Wild Spacer. That might not be a coincidence. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But going on. You were raised in the void of wild space, home to asteroid miners, moon farmers, and other hardy folk. Perhaps you grew up in a far-flung settlement, such as the Rock of Baal, described in Chapter 3, nice self-plug. Or you spent your early years on the crew of a spell-jamming ship, performing helpful chores such as swabbing the deck, loading and offloading cargo, and scraping barnacles off the hull. Alright, giving me a lot of Treasure Planet vibes as well. I'm getting a Han Solo Star Wars smuggler vibes. I'm getting Guardians of the Galaxy vibes. I'm getting Treasure Planet vibes. And oddly enough, I'm also getting Space Quest vibes. The janitor from the Space Quest series. If I'm gonna send us a quick blast to the past of the old Space Quest adventure games from Sierra. The janitor from there, this sort of description kind of reminds me of that guy, especially the helpful chores, and this sort of like implication of the story of like being this sort of nobody who's just doing errands and other nonsense, then turning into a great spacefaring hero. Anyway, whatever your history, life in wild space has toughened you so well that you are as brave as a miniature giant space hamster. I'm gonna sit back and enjoy the stat block. We're gonna pump the brakes on the background, and we're gonna rate the space hamster between 1 and 10. A tiny monstrosity. It's not even a beast. It's just a monstrosity. Damn. I guess I didn't want druids turning into space hamsters. Typically neutral good. Oh, they actually added a little typically there. Good on you. Yeah, hamster. Tiny strength. Wow, this hamster skips leg day, but incredibly dexterous. I'm thinking of space hamster. Are they just like goo? Are they just like kind of goo that could just like shape themselves however they want? I'm looking this up. Hold on. Space hamster. Hold on, let's look this up. Is this a space hamster? No way. This is not what a giant space. It's just a hamster in space. It's just a hamster. Wait. Never mind. I was thinking of the guy that Gruck or whatever uses in Critical Role. Why is there a giant space hamster? Why are they giant and their strength is 1? What? I must not be thinking of them properly. Hold on, let's open his tab. Maybe this will give us a better drawing. Oh, an amorphous black and blue void. This is the monstrosity logo, I think. All right. The first space hamsters were created by wizards who used magic to shrink giant space hamsters to wee size, leading their creators to refer to them as miniature giant space hamsters. Oh, they're miniature giant space hamsters, which is just a space hamster. That is some jumbo shrimp levels of silliness. Now I understand why their strength is so weak, because they normally are giant, and they got shrunk. The magic also made space hamsters smarter and telepathic. But their int is like 6. What about a giant space hamster? Oh gosh. They're super weak. They're super dumb. They're like even more dumb. They have the same challenge rating though. Alright. These benign rodents are native to wild space, though countless numbers of them have found their way to worlds throughout the material plane where they are known simply as hamsters. They keep their telepathic ability. Wait. Is this implying that normal hamsters in D&D are just space hamsters and we don't know it? What does that say about every other animal in the Forgotten Realms or whatever setting? Hold on. Hamster. We're doing a deep dive. Oh, there's a miniature space hamster. There's a homebrew race for emperor hamsters. All right. This is not working. All right. But this implies that a druid couldn't even turn into a normal hamster because they're actually monstrosities and we don't know. That's kind of cute. That's kind of cute. Very weird, but cute. I would make them beasts. Anyway, what can they do? They have the ability to burrow, and they can bite. They do like no damage. Go for the eyes. Isn't that a reference to Critical Role? Who wrote this? Who wrote this? All right. Wow, they do a lot of damage when they go for the eyes. The target must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity save or be blinded until the start of the hamster's next turn. A bonus action, they can dash or disengage. So they're kind of like rogues. They get that sweet, my brain. Ah! They get that sweet cunning action. There we go. What about giant space hamsters? They don't have go for the eyes. They just hurt. They're just painful. I can see why there's a similar challenge rating then. The armor class is probably better for you. Yeah, your dexterity is way higher. And it's +7 to hit, so it's the same. It's even better to hit. Why is there? Oh, it's the. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Wow, our normal space hamsters just like munchkined up normal space hamsters? That's funny. All right, back to the background. We got distracted. All right, skill proficiencies, athletics, and survival. So they're just like the martial version of this like more religious background. Navigators, tools, and vehicles. Space. So you take this, you get space. If you're using this background in a non-space setting, then obviously you probably swap this out for like land vehicles or sea vehicles or whatever. A belaying pin, which is a club. Traveler's clothes, grappling hook, hempen rope, and a pouch containing 10 gold. Close encounter. You had a harrowing encounter with one of Wild Space's many terrors. You escaped with your life, sorry. You did not unalive yourself. I'm gonna escape this life. Bye-bye. You escaped with your life, but the encounter left you with a scar or two, perhaps a recurring nightmare. Roll on the close encounter table to determine which creature nearly got the best of you. Creatures marked with an asterisk appear in Boo's Astral Menagerie. The others are described in the monster manual. Okay. Ooh, mind flayers. I have a soft spot for mind flayers. I think they're really cool. Hey, yes, I am. I'm still dealing with all of your meteor swarm nonsense. It's okay. I'm slowly regaining my energy. My exhaustions are well, my exhaustions are still here, but I'm taking long rests with water, mostly water. Speaking of, sweet hydrate. And also, you know, thanks for checking out the stream, Felix. Happy to see you. We're talking about different stuff in D&D and sharing my totally expert and objectively correct opinion. There's your wild space. Oh my god, they just gave you tough. Stop giving them feats. Stop giving them feats. Everyone wanted feats at level 1. Now you have them. Just take one of these backgrounds. You gained the tough feat. In addition, you learned how to adapt to 0 gravity. Being weightless doesn't give you any disadvantage on any of your melee attack rolls. You get the tough feat. You get a slight bonus on top of that, which is nice. It makes it slightly better than the one above, because this is basically a feat, and then this feature is purely aesthetic. Maybe it can be used to help with like a deception or disguise checks, because if you go the anime route and decide to look like a kid even though you're like 80 years old, you could like be a criminal and then when caught act like a child and be much more believable that way. So there's like maybe some niche ways that longevity gives you a mechanical benefit. But this one's much more explicit in that you get this like, you know, you get this thing that helps you with weightlessness, which in a normal setting probably doesn't matter at all unless you like unless someone casts like levitate on you, or like you're in water or something. Although I don't know if water would count. Water probably has a lot of resistance, so you'd probably still have disadvantage on attack rolls when you're in the water. But it obviously would be a lot more valuable if you're playing in the Spelljammer setting where space is like a thing. I also, any Spelljammer experts out there, can you tell me what the difference is between wild space and the Astral Sea? Because as I understand, the Astral Sea is like this sort of blurry purgatory that lives between each of the worlds, like each of the realms and sort of planes of existence. And then wild space is the moment that you enter a plane of existence from the Astral Sea. Like if you imagine like our world as it exists right now, our big green and blue Earth, there's like the green and blue Earth, and then there's our known universe, which is like a wild space, right? And then beyond the known universe would be like the Astral Sea. Beyond the observable universe would be the Astral Sea. That's as I understand it. And if I had to run a Spelljammer game without knowing anything about Spelljammer, that's how I would do it. But I'm probably wrong. I would love for someone to correct me. Anyway. So yeah, you guys get a tough feat and you get some cool stuff. I do like the close encounter. Again, kind of reminds me of the haunted background, except instead of having a feature or a narrative benefit that ties into the feature, you just get a mechanical one. So instead of having people see the terror in your eyes based on this close encounter you had, or having good stories to tell that you can entertain people for food and lodging and stuff like that, instead you just get tough. You just get some more HP. So say la vie. Everything I said about this, as far as my opinion is, I shared the same thing with it's the same as my opinion on the Astral Drifter. Please give me more narrative features. Please give me more narrative features in my background, wizards, please. All right, moving on from backgrounds, let's talk about these races. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races to go over. Aside from the ones that we saw in the cover, we have the Autonome and the GIF. Oh, and the Plasmoid. We didn't see the Plasmoid. Did we see the Plasmoid up there? No, it was a Plasmoid we were missing. That's what we need. All right. I find that interesting because this is the Githyanki again. But the Githyanki is not a race that's listed here. That's probably because the Githyanki were already explained in a different book. Ooh, Void event. Yes. Share with me your scenario, Felix. When you talk about scenarios like that, it's good. I mean, you could always share it on TTRPG Gaming. I'm really busy, so it's hard for me to find the time to respond in a thorough way. I was thinking that I might make a stream to like provide feedback on homebrew ideas and stuff. And I definitely have you on my list if I ever do get around to that stream. But I do love reading it. And when you say scenarios, I'm excited. Like, did you get like is it like a narrative blurb like you had with the king before? Is it like a stat block? Is it a map? I'm interested. All right. While it's being handled, I'm sure in the Discord, let's talk about Githyanki are natives of the astral plane. If you want to play one, there's monsters. Okay, they're in Monsters of the Multiverse. This chapter describes 6 race options available to players with the DM's consent. Consent is important, everyone. Astral Elf, an elf denizen of the astral plane who is possibly hundreds of years old. So if you're hundreds of years old as an Astral Elf and you take the Astral Drifter background, can you be like even more hundreds of years old? Be exciting. Autonome, a mechanical gnome who has free will. I wonder how age applies to the Autonome. I would imagine they don't age. Do Warforged age? Let's look it up. And yes, like books are nice and all, and I recommend going through the books for people who really want to sink their teeth into D&D. But I'm lazy. I'm a lazy dryad. I'm just gonna Google it. Maybe I'll guess one that's wrong. A typical Warforged is between 2 and 30 years old. Oh, so far Warforged have shown no signs of deterioration due to age. You're immune to magical aging effects. More of a short campaign thing at kickoff. Not exactly trying to describe it aside from being a scenario. So a campaign kickoff, if you're curious, Felix, that is usually referred to as a hook. A hook is like a narrative blurb that DM kind of uses to get everyone invested into the initial story. Kind of explain what happens. Like, you know, you're like if everyone decides to roleplay members of an adventuring guild, the hook would be a scenario like you know you go to your adventuring guild after a nice adventure and have a toast, realizing that the guild has been hauled off and the guild master is dead. And then you gotta solve a mystery about who killed the guild master and why. And that would be like the hook. A scenario that sort of describes the inciting event or something of that nature that gets everyone invested into the initial session. Felix's scenes of encounters and stages. Gotcha. Thank you very much, Felix. Anyone who is interested in the narrative blurbs that Felix has to offer, let me shout out our Discord. We have a Discord. In terms of activity, there is some activity. It's not zero. But feel free to join. It's open to everyone. And if you want to read those encounters, that's where you'll find them. But yes, it seems like Warforged probably don't age, which I find interesting because Autonomes kind of... I assumed that Autonomes would have the same, like, style as a Warforged. I assume. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. GIF, a hippo-headed being of impressive size. Large rodents of unusual... Oh my gosh. I just realized that giant space hamsters are rodents of unusual size. Ida Z, a simian who adapts well to the hazards of wild space. I have some words for the hazardy. Plasmoid, an amoeba-like person. I also, Sig. I know you're out there, Sig. I know you're out there, you big freaking nerd. You played Thrycreen in Ultimate Academy, and you are also the fella who played the Plasmoid in our dungeon demo. So you are just full of wacky character ideas. Ooh. Felix is flying. Felix is chilling. Felix, work your magic, Felix. Plug that. We got a professional writer in the chat. Commissions are open. All right. Oops, I skipped some things. Let's fix that. Back to races. And then finally, Thrycreen, a telepathic insectile being. We've already talked a lot about Thrycreen. Well, I've talked a lot about Thrycreen privately to my players because we've had to deal with Thrycreen in Ultimate Academy. We'll talk about their mechanics in a second. But yeah, Igithyanki are natives, blah blah blah. Monsters Multiverse. We're talking about new stuff. Ooh, this looks to be a new the general rule for races and stuff. When you create your D&D character, you decide whether your character is a member of the human race or one of the game's fantastical races, which includes the races represented in this chapter. If you create a character using a race option presented here, follow these additional rules during character creation. And it looks like they are generally changing the ability scores. If you are curious, I don't know if it was, I'm not sure the history behind it. I heard that it is an act of political correctness, even though I don't quite know if I buy that. When determining your character's ability scores, increase one of those scores by 2 and increase a different score by 1. You can use a canoe as a hat if you flip it over. It's because it is capsized. I like that, Felix. A plus for that pun. Can we get a laugh redeem in the chat for my boy Felix? But yeah, if you play one of the older races, like if you played like a Tabaxi or a gnome or an elf or something like that, you might expect to see things like your dexterity increases, specifically your dexterity, or your constitution increases, specifically your constitution. And I guess some people felt like a struggle because they wanted to play certain races and class combinations, and if you wanted to be a bit of a power gamer, you would be struggling to fit those. And of course, I'm an experienced DM. I don't really abide by that notion. I don't want to be an asshole about it. Like, if you want to use these custom rules, you're fine to do so. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's fun. Personally, I enjoyed having those interesting racial quirks, and it's not like Wizards got rid of them, because all the races still have their special racial quirks. Elves still trance to sleep, Thri-Kreen still have 4 arms and use telepathy, so all the races are still fundamentally different. It's just this one rule about ability scores, which again is why I don't really buy the PC argument. I buy more the sort of mechanical power gamer argument, that people just felt bad picking races that were not optimal for the class they wanted. Which, fair. I think opening up interesting combinations is great. Opening up interesting combinations for players that don't want to be hamstringed by that is fine. But I also think that there's a lot of interesting narratives to be brought up by people who intentionally choose suboptimal combinations and stuff. Gonna work on mage tech. I gotta learn more about mage tech, because I know you've been talking about your special setting. Mage tech sounds like a system, or like a collection of special items, as you say, a claymore, longbow, and gauntlets. I want to hear more about those. When I finish up this stream, I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look up what you've got written down. There's a test. There's a quiz. There's a warning. There's a threat. I'm coming. So yeah, they switched off to being able to easily pick your ability scores. Whatever. I think it makes each class a little less unique, which I think removes a bit of the charm. But it's also just the ability scores, which I think people really obsess over when they're building their character concepts. So whatever. I understand why you would feel the need to do something like this. Anyway, follow this rule regardless of whether the method used to determine the score, such as rolling or point buy. The quick build section for your character's class offers suggestions on which scores to increase. Yep. None of the scores can be raised above 20. We already know that. Your character can speak, read, and write common and one other language that you and your DM agree is appropriate for the character, which is standard stuff. Every creature in D&D, including every player character, has a special tag in the rules that identifies the type of creature they are. Most player characters are of the humanoid type. A race option presented here tells you what your character's creature type is, and this is actually really important. I think there's a lot of interesting ramifications about having player characters who aren't humanoid, because obviously you have like the super tight circle of common player character races, your humans, your elves, your dwarves, your halflings, and stuff like that, which are super solidly like super humanoid. You have maybe a little bit of Fey ancestry with the elves, but solidly humanoid, and solidly in that sort of safe circle of safe races. And you have characters that are like and then you like sort of transition from there to like monstrous races like the bugbear and kobold and it's like a merfolk or something like that, where they're like, excuse me, they're like monstrous races that you would not expect to see, but they're still humanoids. And then beyond that, you get like the really, really exotic characters that aren't even humanoids, like the Plasmoid or the Fairy or the Autonome or the Warforged, which has very interesting ramifications because of the way how spells work and how they only target humanoids, or how they have special rules that impact humanoids or non-humanoids. Anyway, here are the list of the game's creature types in alphabetical order: aberration, beast, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fey, fiend, giant, humanoid, monstrosity, ooze, plant, and undead. I keep forgetting that ooze is its own type. These types don't have rules, but some rules in the game affect creatures. For example, the Cure Wounds specifies the spells and work on a creature that has the Construct type. The Autonome is a noteworthy exemption. So the Autonome has something weird. But obviously the Autonome is a type of construct, it seems. The lifespan of a player character is about a century. Unless you're the freaking Spacefarer, Lolly or whatever. Height and weight. You know, nice aesthetic stuff. Alright, finally, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Astral Elf. Long ago, groups of elves ventured from the Feywild to the astral plane to be closer to their gods. Life in the Silver Void has imbued their souls with a spark of divine light. That light manifests as a starry gleam in an astral elf's eyes. Really just looks like a gold diamond to me. Because nothing ages on the astral plane, astral elves who inhabit that plane can be very old, and their longevity gives them an unusual perspective on the passage of time. Some are prone to melancholy, while others might display an absence of feeling. Many look for creative ways to occupy themselves, whether they choose to live in quiet contemplation or strike out to explore the reaches of the multiverse. Astral elves tend to see things through the lens of time as having little or no meaning to them. Astral elves don't dwell on the astral plane. Astral elves who don't dwell on the astral plane can live to be more than 750 years old, and that's good. That tells us how their age works beyond being part of the astral plane. And I notice here they talk about the astral plane specifically, which I think is different from the astral sea. Like, are they different, or are they being used interchangeably here? Anyway, we've got some nice fancy like fencing stuff. Why is the guy with the melee weapon doesn't have a helmet, but the person with the helmet has a bow? How can you aim? You can't see. Oh well. And the following traits. You're a humanoid. Thank you. You're also considered an elf for any prerequisite or effect that requires you to be an elf, which I guess might include like certain magical items and stuff like that. You are medium, your walking speed is 30 feet, standard stuff. You know one of the following cantrips of your choice: Dancing Lights, Light, or Sacred Flame. Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma, your spellcasting ability. Choose means like this. Race, yep, you just get a free cantrip, which involves light, which kind of makes sense. You are an Astral Elf. Astral ties into stars, and stars are just big balls of light at the end of the day. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering about the impact of this when it comes to how like the ships work, because they're powered by like spell slots or something. That's like the ruling. So how do these people that have like special cantrips that they can use magic but don't have spell slots, are they just like tiny baby wizards that can't operate big ships? And also from Felix, my definition of mage tech: machinery and magic combined into one individual product. So it's a series of items, it seems. The sigils and etchings of the service are under it can bring so much more than the product can do by itself. A simple example is a claymore with flame sigils. It can ignite upon the user's will. What the user can make it do is up to them. However prolonged usage is and a quick succession can result in shorter life expectation in general. Of the item or of the user? Which one? I feel like you should be like just a little bit more specific, okay? Oops, I shouted out zombie. I did not mean to do that. But yeah, that sounds interesting. The flame sword is an interesting example, since that's fairly common in any sort of enchanting. So there must be something interesting to the sigils and how the machinery plays into it. Like there's some sort of ignition that applies deep within the claymore that heats up the metal and lets the flame erupt from holes drilled into it. Just like using my imagination of like tying machinery into it. They were playing Jackbox? Wow, that was a long time ago. Anyway, dark vision. You get dark vision. 60 feet dark vision, which is fine. That's I think the standard distance. Fey Ancestry, you have advantage on saving throws to avoid or end the charmed condition. You have proficiency in perception. I kind of don't. I'm shocked by the number of characters, the number of features that give you proficiency in perception. There's so many features that give you proficiency in perception. It's no wonder that perception is such a mainstay. Is such a mainstay skill that you're kind of weird if you don't have proficiency in perception anymore. And it's kind of like the Chad perception and the Virgin investigation. I like to see more investigations checks be used. Right now, they're the way I see them, they're mostly used when looking at illusions, or like specifically like when you're doing like a crime scene, a mystery. Like when you're doing like that kind of stuff and you want to be Sherlock Holmes, the one time where people like think of actually using investigation. I'd like to see investigation used more often. You know, not as a straight alternative to perception, but more like as an option that you would consider instead of the default perception being like looking around and seeing things. Of the product. Oh, life cycle of the product. Okay. Good to know. Sigils can be overcharged by the user's choice by a variety of ways. Blood is the strongest. Ah. So there's ways that sigils work. The sigils themselves are powered in certain ways. You tie a little bit of that blood magic into it. That's where the magic comes in. Edgy. And not just because of the claymore. Alright. Starlight Step. As a bonus action, you can magically teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. So, just Phase Step as an Eladrin. You can use this trait a number of times equal to proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So, a bonus action teleport is quite good. It's quite good. Again, teleportation getting very common. But it's fine. I mean, it's just Phase Step the way it normally is. They just reflavored it. Astral Trance, you don't need to sleep, and magic can't put you to sleep. You can finish a long rest in 4 hours. So again, it's just a Fey Trance from Elf. Oh, you get something else. You get proficiency in one skill of your choice and with one weapon or tool of your choice, selected from the player's handbook. You mystically acquire these proficiencies by drawing them from shared elven memory and the experiences of entities on the astral plane, and you retain them until you finish your next long rest. This sort of implies a sort of shared consciousness between astral elves, which I don't really see in the documentation here, and that sort of has a psionic tie to it, right? And I was talking with Sig just recently about like how odd 5th edition is handling psionic powers, and in here they're kind of just like sprinkling a psionic power into a racial feature. It seems like more and more they're making psionic features a genetic racial feat more than what they had done before in 4th edition, where psionic was like a power source that was tied to your class, and it like focused on the inner mind. So I'm seeing why the psionic features are being, I want to say, watered down in terms of class features, because they're being spread across all these different racial features. Okay. And before I move on to the Autonomes, I'll just say, you know, everything I see here is, of course, fine. It's just an elf with some special AG mechanics and this, I think, update to their trance. Sigil has their own energy source. The material of the product is dependent on the user's choice. Steel Claymore will have a war expectation life of 2 months. That's without tapping additional sources into it. Wow. I'm assuming that's in times of active battle. Like, yeah, you're not just creating a sigil, you're just creating a steel claymore and then dropping it on the ground and being like, I don't want to play with you anymore. You have 2 weeks to live. Just store it in a freezer. Try to preserve it. Active battle. Interesting. It gives magic items a sort of time limit, or like a charge system. That even normally permanent magic items kind of end up becoming consumable when you think about it. It might make magical ammunition more commonplace if your magical major weaponry also had charges. Anyway, moving on, we've got our Autonomes, which look fucking wonky. Look at this heckin' chonker here. This guy's an auto dwarf. I don't care who you think you are. This is an auto dwarf. This is not an auto gnome. This is an auto dwarf. He's even holding an axe. Get the dwarf out of here. All right. Autonomes are mechanical beings built by rock gnomes. Sometimes, because of a malfunction or unique circumstance, an autonome becomes separated from its creator and strikes out on its own. An autonome bears a resemblance to its creator, and most autonomes are programmed to speak and understand gnomish. The internal components used in an autonome's manufacture can vary wildly. One autonome might have an actual beating heart in its chest cavity, while another might be powered by stardust or intricate clockwork gears. Roll on the Autonome history table or choose an entry that you'd like to identify what event set you on the path of the adventure. If nothing on the table appeals to you, work to your dear DM to create an origin story. Fair. Like gnomes, Autonomes can live for centuries, typically up to 500 years. Interesting that as constructs, these guys have a lifespan, whereas the Warforged, who are also constructs, didn't have an explicit lifespan, at least not in their blurb. I imagine that ties into their power source, right? Because some of them use actual beating hearts, which sort of belies it. I can imagine a scenario where the beating heart used for an autonome that might influence their lifespan. But even then, like stardust and clockwork gears might rust in ways that would suggest an age limit. You got your history. Your creator gave you autonomy and urged you to follow your dreams. Ah, the good story. Or your creator died, leaving you to fend for yourself. Wow, they really went feast or famine with the first two. Number 3, a glitch caused you to forget your original programming. You don't remember who made you or where you came from. Oh, that's the Matrix one, Matrix mode. You didn't like how you were being treated by your creator, so you ran away from home. That implies that you do start off with sentience. But not necessarily autonomy, which I think is interesting. Kind of gives you that that Detroit Become Human feel. You were built to complete a special mission, the sleeper agent mode. Okay. You felt trapped in the role for which you were built and abandoned your creator, determined to find a greater purpose. Okay, so the opposite of the sleeper agent. All right, all perfectly fine Autonome backstories. It's interesting though, because for something very closely tied to gnomes themselves haven't been featured yet in the book. You have the following racial traits. You're a construct, which is important because it means you're not a humanoid. You are small, and your walking speed is 30 feet. Again, this one seems particularly weird. Why are autonomes have a walking speed of 30 feet, where gnomes, normal gnomes, I remember, have a walking speed of 25 feet? Usually when you're small, you get a slightly slower walking speed. And I guess they're sort of nipping that in the bud as well, because I saw that, you know, tabaxis, updated tabaxis and updated plasmoids, at least not updated plasmoids, but plasmoids back when they were in the UA, allowed you to choose whether you were medium or small, and your walking speed was unrelated to your size, so your walking speed was always 30 feet. But I kind of liked having, again, a slight racial difference, having 25 feet for your little bitty babies, what I think, you know, is good. Right now, being small typically has quite some advantages. It's easier for you to squeeze through spaces. You can typically wear more types of gear. I'm thinking most likely, I mean, small also has disadvantages. Mostly when you are grappling or being grappled, your size starts to matter a lot more. So I guess they figured that being small didn't give you enough of an advantage to make up for the lack of speed. Especially, that's sort of a remnant of the old 3.5 edition rules. If anyone here is an old 3.5 player like me, if you were small in 3.5 edition, it actually translated into higher accuracy and higher armor class because you were a smaller target for everyone, and to everyone else, and to you, everyone else was a bigger target than normal. So their armor class, so your accuracy was higher and your armor class was higher as well to represent that. And I guess since that was no longer a thing in 5th edition, they figured that it wasn't worth having 5 less movement speed. Armor casing. You are encased in thin metal or some other durable material. While you aren't wearing armor, your base armor class is 13 plus your dexterity modifier. This is basically mage armor all the time. Sick. I think that's just fine. I think that's interesting. You see something very similar to that. I would... I mean, I don't know if I would do anything different. Felix's creation of D&D things is coming up live. Oh my gosh. Felix, just take the Discord, man. Just copy it down. It's become the Cub Scout headquarters and also Felix's compendium of awesome mage tech stuff. I'm excited. Built for success. You can add a d4 to one attack roll, ability check, or saving throw you make, and you can do so after seeing the d20 roll, but before the effects of the roll are resolved. You can use this trait a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and regain when you take a long rest. This is bless. It's just bless. you get a bunch of free blesses, which is neat. But they're all just bonuses. Which is cool. I like the armored casing a bit more. It like tweaks a core stat, cheats a rule a bit. If the mending spell is cast on you, you can spend a hit die, roll it, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll plus your constitution modifier, which is a way for you to heal without using spell slots or needing a short rest, which is good. This is actually a lot better than it seems, because normally you can re-roll your hit dice and you get your constitution modifier, and you would do that as part of a short rest. But because so many fewer features are being tied to short rests are more and more often being used only to cure HP from using your hit dice. And short rest takes 60 minutes to do. It takes an hour. Mending only takes a minute to do. So that means that even at level 20, and you want to spend all your hit dice, it takes 1/3 of the time compared to taking a short rest, which is wild to me. In addition, your creator designed you to benefit from several spells that preserve life but normally don't affect constructs. Cure Wounds, Healing Word, Mass Cure Wounds, Mass Healing Word, and Spare the Dying. Spare the Dying is particularly interesting to me. How would Spare the Dying change construct? I can understand HP, because that kind of represents the mending of your plating and synthetic body. I suppose Spare the Dying reaches in and deals with your interiors, deals with your clockwork or your beating heart. So it's feasible. I buy it. Sorry if I sound like a skeptic. I tend to view new features through the lens of skepticism first. to see how I really feel about them. But then I usually warm up to them. I think that's a natural progression of us D&D players. The version we started with is always the best, and all the new stuff is just ruining the game. It's ruining the game. Ah! So that's me right now with my skepticism. But I'm trying to keep an open mind. You have resistance to poison damage and immunity to disease. And you have advantage on saving throws against being paralyzed or poisoned. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. This is good. These are I mean, you don't need to eat, drink, or breathe is fine mechanically. I personally don't like it. I don't like when they are used a lot. Like all the constructs and stuff have it. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's just boring when you don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. It obviously makes sense when you're a construct, when you're an Autonome. So it'd be weird if you couldn't do it, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Things like this are kind of like tools that trivialize. The reason why I don't like it, like let me explain myself. The reason why I don't like these kinds of features is because they tend to trivialize or restrict interesting scenarios that your DM can put you in. For example, I had the, what was it, the 4th floor, I think? The 4th floor of our dungeon demo. We had a Reborn, a Minotaur, a Plasmoid, and a Warforged in the party. And I had designed an entire underwater segment for them to explore. But out of the 4 players, 3 of them didn't need to breathe, which meant that for the 1 person who did need to breathe, they got like, a special piece of equipment that helped them out. Once they got that special item, the entire floor was sort of rendered trivial, and no one really had to think about how they swam or anything. So the entire floor was sort of trivialized. That's what I'm talking about when I like have a bit of skepticism when it comes to these features. Sentry's Rest. When you take a long rest, you spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state instead of sleeping. In this state, you appear inert, but you remain unconscious. And this is, I like this. I really like when you have something like this, when you have, what I call them is inactivity. Because there are a lot of races that have features that allow you to have inactivity while you're taking a long rest. And I think they're more balanced compared to things that you'll see like with a Thri-kreen or like Aspect of the Moon stuff, where instead of having conscious inactivity, you instead just have full reign of light activity, which again sort of trivializes the aspect of resting, and long resting especially. But it's still good. It doesn't trivialize it as much, because usually when you're in a party, at least 1 person needs to rest and needs to sleep still, so you're fine. But if you take enough of these fancy races, then sometimes, like, keeping watch and things like that become super duper trivial. And I mean, keeping watch is a bad example because the Autonomes also can keep watch, but other things like that. It cheats a lot of the time that you have in other features like scrying scrolls and stuff like that. Specialized design. You gain 2 tool proficiencies of your choice. Now this feature's delicious. I love this feature, and I don't care who knows it, because I am a fan. I'm a huge fan of tools. I think, like investigation, tools get a bad rap. Tools aren't used often enough in Dungeons and Dragons. So I want to see tools used more. I think mechanically, it's probably weak because it's very GM dependent, and a lot of DMs don't think about tools. Like if you want to use a musical instrument, most DMs will just have you roll a performance check, even though you should have proficiency in a tool, in a musical instrument. and roll based on that instrument's skill. If you think about it, instead of thinking of it as a skill check, you have an ability check that you then apply either a skill or a tool proficiency to. The way I like to think about it. And so tools allow you to do things that skills normally don't let you do. That's what you really got to think about when you're thinking about skills or thinking about tools. They should be used to do things that skills don't let you do. And I want to see more of that be normalized in Dungeons and Dragons. And giving people tool proficiencies that they then want to play with is a good way to make that happen. It's much better than like getting proficiency in perception, for example, because everyone's gonna get proficiency in perception. It might as well say get proficiency in one skill of your choice, because you get proficiency in perception from your race. That just means that you can choose a new skill to get proficiency in from your class. All right. But overall, Autonomes, I rate them slightly higher than Astral Elves. They're more interesting. They're not just elves with the serial number filed off and sparkles added to their name. They're more unique. They have traits similar to Warforged, with some narrative aspects that tie into the gnomes. And I also kind of like that it sort of separates Warforged from gnomes now, because I think in a lot of settings, or at least in a lot of homebrew settings that I've worked with and played in, gnomes, and I think this ties into World of Warcraft too, because World of Warcraft, I think, popularized the idea, the notion that gnomes were like masters of technology, and they're really good at working with machines and stuff like that. And they're very solid engineers. I think World of Warcraft sort of popularized that notion, and it's now become more prevalent in fantasy media. And so because of that, the Warforged, which is the more common construct race, is commonly associated with gnomes. And I kind of like that having Autonomes kind of works to separate that connection, because now that you have Autonomes, which is a more gnome explicitly tied race, that gives Warforged the freedom to be more associated with other races, like dwarves or humans or whatever, you know? So I like that narrative as well. I think Autonomes get an A+ from me, even though explicitly tying one race to another seems weird. I think it works for, I think it does what I assume the designers want it to do. Let's move on to the GIF now. Oh, wait. We have a blurb about the Mage Tech Longbow. Similar to the Claymore, its life expectancy being dependent on the material it's made out of and the constant usage of its sigils. Lightning sigils is the most effective sigil, is the most effective sigils than others. I think it means they're more effective than others, due to metal armor being conductive. Wouldn't that mean a metal claymore is also more effective? Or are you talking about just sigils in general and not just relative to the longbow? Due to metal armor being conductive. It can fire without arrows, but using more energy, and it can power arrows to have electrical powers and having a longer life expectation. So the life expectation is based without arrows? That sort of betrays what I was talking about before. I mentioned how I kind of like the charge system for bows and other, well, I guess for other melee weapons, because that sort of put them on par with more consumable magic items like magic ammunition. But if you have a longbow that can be shot without using ammunition, that sort of trivializes the ammunition again, because now you don't even need any ammunition. Can you combine magic ammunition with mage tech stuff? That would be an interesting question, and an interesting way to combine effects. Like for example, like having the idea of like walloping ammo, or like poisoned arrows that also electrify you, so that like if the electricity doesn't paralyze you, the poison does. That'd be interesting to see. All right, let's talk about GIF. GIF are tall, broad-shouldered folks with hippo-like features. Some have smooth skin, while others have short bristles on their faces and the tops of their heads. Ah, bristly. As beings of impressive size, unusual size, I'll always say unusual size, and unforgettable appearance, Gif are noticed wherever they go. Yeah, they're pretty noticeable. Most Gif believe they originated on one world, but their home world is now the stuff of legend, because no living Gif has seen it or knows where it is. The divine beings who created Gif have likewise been forgotten. Interesting. Their titanic, petrified bodies drift on the astral sea, isolated and unrecognizable in their current forms. I guess a god does die when it's forgotten. That has a bigger implication on how gods die than I realized. Although they don't realize it, Gif are drawn to the astral plane because on a deep psychic level they remain connected to their creator gods, who have just enough divine spark left in them to imbue Gif with sparks of their own, which Gif have learned to channel through their weapons. So once again, this is sort of what I was talking about before. Instead of having those psionic class features, they're baking it into this like racial connection, which like anyone who says that Wizards of the Coast is being more politically correct by changing the mechanical rules of ability scores, they're not reading the actual descriptions of the races in the setting, because the description of the races are enforcing that hegemony between races so strictly. The Astral Elves have feature that rely on their shared memories with specifically other elves. The Gif have a shared psychic connection with their god that only Gif have, you know? Like, they still have solid race-like features that are unique, which is fine, but it is specific to their race and it's not shareable. And it's also psionic, which ties into that racial genetic stuff. It relates to their biology. So Wizards of the Coast is not being more PC, at least writing these blurbs. Mechanically, maybe they are, and then people see that because all they do is homebrew stuff anyway, or use pre-written adventures, which, by the way, highly recommend for any prospective DMs out there. If you want to DM or run D&D, but you're scared of making your own session or making your own setting and stuff like that, you're scared of being a Chad like Felix, making their own items, there's no shame in using a pre-made adventure. Definitely helps get your feet wet. But yeah, like racial hegemony, racial, I mean, not animosity, but racial themes is still crazy prevalent in all of the D&D books. So all the haters that are talking about PC culture, I don't know where they're getting their ideas from, but it's super obvious it's not the case when you actually read their books. Where was I? Right, most Gif have no idea where this so-called astral spark comes from. Sparking! All right, we have a name for it now. Kind of gives me Planeswalker vibes. But they feel its presence most strongly when they are in wild space or the astral sea. Okay, again, they're alternating between astral sea and astral plane. Gif are split into two camps concerning how their name is pronounced. I don't want to finish that paragraph. Half of them say it with a hard G, half with a soft G. Disagreements over the correct pronunciation often blossom into hard feelings, loud arguments, and head-butting contests, but they rarely escalate beyond that. My boy, you have not been to the internet. You have not been. Whoever wrote this book has not been to the. I'm gonna eat some pizza. Oh. Real quick. Whoever wrote this has not seen the internet. There would be flame wars across the galaxy over this. But I will give it to them. I like a book that, at least at some level, doesn't take it too seriously. Okay? Creature type, you're humanoid, medium speed, Walking speed is 30 feet, and you have a swimming speed equal to your walking speed. Okay. So any bonus to your walking speed also improves your swimming speed. Your psychic connection to the astral plane enables you to mystically access a spark of divine power, which you can channel through your weapons. When you hit a target with a simple or martial weapon, you can cause the target to take extra force damage equal to your proficiency bonus. So they get extra force damage. Basically hit them with a soft magic missile with your weapon strikes. You can use this trait a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, but you can use it no more than once per turn. What I think is interesting, once per turn as opposed to once per attack. This makes GIF way more likely to be weapon-based users as opposed to like hard spellcasters, because they want to be able to hit things with weapons. Firearms Mastery. This is the one that I remember reading. You have a mystical connection to firearms. We have the Second Amendment became sentient and is now a race in Dungeons and Dragons. You have a religious connection. You have a patriotic connection. Hold on. You have a patriotic connection to firearms that traces back to the gods. It is my God-given right to have a gun. The GIF would unironically say that. You have a mystical connection to firearms that trace back to the gods of the GIF who delighted in such weapons. That also implies that firearms are ancient. You have proficiency with all firearms and ignore the loading property of any firearm. I know many DMs that homebrew their firearms and would be so pissed at this feature. Most of them would probably house rule this out. In addition, attacking at long range with a firearm doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack roll, which is basically a feature borrowed from Sharpshooter, which you're probably taking anyway if you were going to be a gunslinger. It just lets you benefit from it a bit earlier. And if I want to be a jerk and talk about history, you have to remember that guns, as far as history goes... Hey, Sad Chris, howdy rowdy. Thank you for checking out the stream. I messed up, Chris. I didn't update my stream info, which means it sent the same go live notification as last time. I apologize. This time it's actually Scuff and not just me being silly. In the college library right now, I'm trying to You're trying to do calculus? What are you doing? Get away! Get off my stream! Get out! Go! Go! Go, 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 go! I forbid you! I ban you! I slam you! Emails. They're fixed! They're fixed! I promise! I promise! It's the go live notification was supposed to be about which D&D version is the best one, and then I messed up. I effed up. I'll stop the swears because you're in the college library. And it's college, so obviously they allow no swears. Gotta be respectful. Gotta respect books. But yeah, shoot, what was I even talking about? Oh, yeah, guns. Guns in the olden days were very powerful, but also wildly inaccurate. Like, I'm talking if they were like further than 20 feet from you, you probably missed. They were very, very inaccurate. So specifically, having a Firearms Mastery that gives you this long range feature, I don't really like it. I wish they had some other feature that you could use here to not only make Sharpshooter better when you eventually do take it, but also, you know, be a bit more realistic with guns in D&D. And I know my realism with guns and probably the guns in Spelljammer are nowhere near like the kind of guns you would see conventionally in history, especially if they're ancient weapons, as implied by their mastery. But I mean, I still would have chosen something. I think mechanically, it's like a lot of DMs who want to have guns in their games would struggle to justify this. Finally, we have the hippo size. You have advantage on strength-based ability checks and strength saving throws. That's just a really good feature. Strength-based ability checks makes GIF having this feature makes GIF immediately a solid grappler, because getting advantage on athletics checks for grappling is super good. In addition, you count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity. So you have basically two options when you do GIF. You can either be if you're melee, you're probably a grappler, because that lets you take advantage of your hippo build. And if you are a ranged person, you're probably a gunslinger, so you can take advantage of your Firearms Mastery. Keep in mind that if you're a grappler, I love my grapplers, by the way. I love being able to just get up close and personal. I think they're very fun characters to play. Keep in mind that punching someone, like using your fists, your fist is a natural weapon, which means it counts as a weapon attack. Although I noticed that Astral Spark specifically says simple or martial weapon, so unfortunately it doesn't count for your unarmed strike. Overall, I really like the GIF mechanically. I see another tie-in to the psionics. The only thing I have is that the loading, like the Firearms Mastery, I think is very common. I think there were plenty of unique ways to have Firearms Mastery be a part of the GIF, especially because it is based on a mystical connection. It kind of reminds me of that one really offensive is maybe too strong a term, but it's that one episode of like South Park where it's like they talk to that kid, I don't even know his name, but he's just like, oh, like play the bass. Like you're black, of course you know how to play the bass, it's in your blood. And then like he knows how to play the bass. This is literally that, but with guns. And he doesn't buy it based on like a religion or something. It's literally that. It's not based on like a traditionist training like the elves have, and it's not based on like a culture like you might have with like centaurs. Or do centaurs, I forget if centaurs and minotaurs have like bow training or something, because they kind of have that like archer vibe. But like this one, there's no excuse. This is literally just a genetic connection with guns. God-given right. Let's go. All right, before we go on the Hasidi, we have to segue. Felix give us another delicious pair of items. The Mage Tech Gauntlets. Commonly having their sigils etched underneath, they are commonly tapped to via blood. So they're like a blood pressure test? No, a blood sugar test. The Mage Tech blood sugar tests. You take the little thing, now you can cast spells. The popular sigils are tied between the elements lightning, ice, and earth. Due to the closeness of the gauntlets and the foretold constant contact, many of the users reported to have their sigil element being to integrate into their being, like they become filled with static electricity, or like they become cold-blooded. Many of them reported that it doesn't interrupt their movements. Many of them have not requested to have them removed. So we have maybe some weird transmutations going on with these gauntlets. They make them look cooler. I like how it's not about the drive for power. It's just I look cool. I like having rocky stones growing out of my shoulders. I look epic as fuck. I like it. I'm interested in how the different sigils work though. Is it just elemental damage, or do they come with their own things? Alright. Let's talk about these motherfuckers. Let's talk about the Hadozee. The Hadozee? The Hazardee? It's not. Oh my god, I just realized that I've been pronouncing it wrong the whole time. It's the Hadozee, not the Hazardee. Hazadee's nuts! That's why it's called the Hadozee. Because if they called it the Hazodee, people made Hazadee's nuts jokes, and then they swapped the consonants. That's my headcanon. That's why they're called the Hadozee. The first Hadozees were timid mammals no bigger than house cats. Hunted by larger natural predators, the Hadozes took to the trees and evolved wing-like flaps that enabled them to glide from branch to branch. And my god, those branch are wild. They don't even tie into their arms. I was thinking more like a bat, like a flying squirrel. But these aren't attached. They're connected at their wrist or something, and they just stay there. The giant flaps, real stuff. Several hundred years ago, a wizard called Yazir, visited Yazir, the Hadozee homeworld, with a small fleet of spell-jamming ships. Under the wizard's direction, apprentices laid magic traps and captured dozens of Hadozes. Okay. I see we're being a little safari here. The wizard fed the captives an experimental elixir that enlarged them and turned them into sapient bipedal beings. So awakening. You just awaken them. The elixir had the side effect of intensifying the Hadozee's panic response, making them more resilient when harmed. The wizard's plan was to create an army of enhanced Hadozee warriors for sale to the highest bidder. Okay, so this wizard, not a nice guy, not a fun guy. We might have imagined that before, but now it's confirmed, verified. You can stamp that. The apprentices and the Hadozees were forced to kill the wizard. Oh, but instead the wizard's apprentices grew fond of the Hadozees and helped them escape. Wow! It's a real working class story. The apprentices and the Hadozees were forced to kill the wizard, after which they fled, taking with them all remaining vials of the wizard's experimental elixir. With the help of their liberators, the Hadozees returned to their homeworld and used the elixir to create more of their kind. In time, all Hadozee newborns came to possess the traits of the enhanced Hadozees. Then, centuries ago, Hadozees took to the stars, leaving Yazir's fearsome predators behind. In addition to being natural climbers, Hadozees have feet that are as dexterous as their hands, even to the extent of having opposable thumbs. Membranes of skin hang loosely from their arms and legs. When stretched taut, these membranes enable Hadozees to glide. Hadozees wrap these wings around themselves to keep warm. So, a cold resistance thing? Who knows? It might just be a flavor thing. But yes, we have good climbers. We have feet. We have feet.com. Hold on, let me show feet coming in right now. All right, let's talk about their traits. You're a humanoid. Okay, so the giant space hamster is a monstrosity, and the monkeys that drank the experimental juice are humanoid. Neither of them are beasts, which makes sense. I mean, I don't know if I'd want a druid to transform into a Hadozee when they could already turn into basically a monkey, which is like pre-Hadozee, I assume. Oh, the sigils taking a flame sigil, for example, adds their own damage statically on top of the slicing damage. Slicing damage in 5e, yeah, so 2d6 slashing and 46 fire damage. Wow, that's a powerful thing. That's like that turns your weapon into a portable fireball. All right, you are humanoid, you are medium or small. You choose the size when you select this race. Your walking speed is 30 feet, and you have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, similar to how Tabaxi have their climbing speed. Dexterous feet. As a bonus action, you can use your feet to manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. This is interesting. This is sort of copied from the fast hands feature of the thief subtype, because they can use objects as a bonus action, but this one's way more limited because it's just used to manipulate objects, like turning something, open or close a door or container, or use a tiny object specifically. So you can't pick up like smaller or larger things. Glide, which I don't know how much that really limits things when I think about it, because like most objects are tiny. Like most things you would feasibly pick up are already tiny. If they're small or larger, then you're probably picking up like a chest or something, at which point you're obviously like not strong enough. maybe this makes it so that you can't like pick up a tiny or a small like a creature and stuff. So it's actually stronger than I think it implies, especially because it's a bonus action and not like your use object interaction. I would imagine a scenario where like when you use the object interaction, or rather, as you do not need a hand free to use like the free object interaction if you have at least a foot free. If you are not incapacitated or wearing heavy armor, which means that you can wear medium armor. That's crazy. Spoilers ahead. I already know what the glide does, and I'm not happy about it. If you are not incapacitated or wearing heavy armor, which means that if you're wearing medium armor or lighter, you can extend your skin membranes and glide. When you do so, you can perform the following aerial maneuvers. You can move up to 5 feet horizontally for every 1 foot you descend in the air, at no movement cost to you. When you would take damage from a fall, you can use your reaction to reduce the fall's damage to 0. This is crazy. And the reason why is because extending your skin membranes doesn't take an action. So this is just a free thing you can do all the time. And this basically lets you jump and glide. You basically become fucking Knuckles. It's wild. It doesn't say anything about like a minimum restriction. I had talked to Sigber about this earlier, and not only is it kind of unrealistic just because like you need time for the winds to catch up to you, and you probably need some forward momentum to get your glide started, but also it's really powerful. Like, think about it this way, right? If you have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, that means that you could, theoretically, if you start your turn next to a wall, you can spend like 25 feet of movement climbing that wall, then spend your 5 feet to like jump off the wall and then glide. And that would let you move 125 feet on your turn with no other features and with no resource. The only requirement being you need to like have something to climb, which if you're doing a dungeon crawl or you're in a city, which are the two most common things in the world in D&D, you're gonna have walls. It's nowhere near as niche as it seems. I would imagine something like this scaling down a lot more, like maybe a 3-to-1 ratio instead of a 5-to-1 ratio, and maybe like requiring that you have to fall at least 10 feet before you benefit from this. Like imagine if this said something like, if you fall at least 10 feet, you can use your reaction to extend your skin membranes and glide. After 10 feet of falling, for every foot you fall, move 5 feet horizontally. So you have this 10 feet of buffer that you use to extend your membranes and let the wind catch you. And then after that, you get your 5 feet per foot. So if you like fell 20 feet, the first 10 feet would catch the wind. And then the remaining 10 feet would let you move 50 feet. And then, you know, at the end of your fall, you take 0 falling damage. This means that you would first need to fall 10 feet. And you would need to spend your reaction to use this feature, because that reaction is how you would extend your skin membranes. If I were writing this race, that's probably how I would have designed it. So that using this proactively requires you to use your reaction on your turn. And that would mean that you can't use your reaction in other ways for things like counter spells or uncanny dodge. So your incredible maneuverability would come at a genuine cost. And maybe that's, you know, too much, using up your reaction to get that crazy movement. But that's what I imagine it would look like. as it is right now, it's really rough to justify rules as written. Like, it's almost impossible as a DM to have a Hadazi who wants to use this feature and not have to like add some restriction. And this is coming from someone who wants to make maps that really let people take advantage of this. Because like the implication, for example, would be like, oh well, you're a Hadazi, you have a Hadazi on your team, just like don't have as many like walls on your maps. But I don't like that, because like verticality and terrain is one of the like core tools of what makes D&D so exciting. In terms of like large squad combat. And so like the white void, the empty room, the void of all features is not realistically where you're going to be fighting. Because yeah, obviously in that white room, this feature does nothing. Unless you jump, which is a thing I'm not even going to talk about. But yeah, that's how I would do it anyway. Also, common attacks learned by sword user is a fire slash. Deals 2d4 slicing plus 2d6 fire damage up to 50 feet. 50-foot range? That's so good. That's like a scorching ray. What's the range on scorching ray? $120 feet. Okay, so it's not it's not as far as scorching ray, but it is quite far. I think it's as far as a dragon's breath weapon, which is quite big. Would that do armor class if it has a range? If it's a range and it does fire damage, I would normally expect it to be like a dex save, unless like the sword is extending that far. Oh wait, maybe you mean the 2d4 slashing damage is from the weapon attack, and then the 2d6 fire damage is what goes up to 50 feet. That makes a lot more sense. All right, finally the resilience. Right now already, this character is very good. Very little mechanical differences, but what they have really changes the game. Specifically their glide, and a little bit their dexterous feet. Then they have the Hadazi resilience. The magic that runs in your veins heightens your natural defenses. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to roll a d6, add your efficiency bonus to the number rolled, and reduce the damage you take by an equal amount to that total. Minimum of 0. You can use a straight equal your proficiency bonus, blah blah blah. So I can see why this would struggle with my redesign of glide, because they both fight for your reaction. When I think about it that way, I don't imagine that there would be a very easy way for you to use the glide. I guess I would remove this reaction, right? I guess I would make it so that when you fall 10 feet, you just naturally get to glide. And if you fall, I would say probably if you fall 30 or more feet, you would get to use you would need to use your reaction to reduce the fall's damage to 0. Otherwise, you reduce your fall damage to 0, just automatically. That would make the glide kind of stronger, because in some scenarios you wouldn't need to use your reaction to take less fall damage. That's probably what I would do. The dex save will be higher the closer you are to the source. That's quite interesting. That reminds me of the retributive strikes that wizards have. Wizards, like magical items, allow you to cause magical explosions that do damage at scales based on how close you are to the explosion. Kind of reminds me of that, except instead of increasing the damage, it increases the difficulty of the dex save. But yeah, overall, overall, I think the Hadazi is too strong because of how maneuverable their glide is. If it were up to me, I would change the glide. First, I would change the glide to require you to fall at least 10 feet before you can catch wind and start gliding. Second, I would make it so that you reduce the false damage to 0 without a reaction, unless you fell at least 30 feet. That's what I would do. Homebrew items and the working at its finest. Yeah. Yeah, homebrew items really do change the game. I know it's very powerful. I'd be very excited to use something like that. Hope it requires attunement. I'd assume it does. Wait, well, some weapons don't. A lot of meta weapons don't require attunement, but usually they don't have crazy fire powers. Alright. That's the Hadazee. And freaking Sigbur, I know you're listening. I know you're listening. I mean everything I said about the freaking glide. It's freaking nuts. It's crazy. Plasmoids. They are amorphous beings with no typical shape. In the presence of other folk, they often adopt a similar shape, but there's little chance of mistaking a plasmoid for anything else. They consume food by osmosis, the way an amoeba does, and excrete waste through tiny pores. They breathe by absorbing oxygen through another set of pores, and their limbs are strong and flexible enough to grasp and manipulate weapons and tools. Although most plasmoids are translucent gray, they can alter their color and translucence by absorbing dyes through their pores. So, they obviously don't have to deal with the toxins. Plasmoids don't have any internal organs of the usual sort. Their bodies are composed of cells, fibers, plasma-like ooze, and clusters of nerves. That's just like me right before a test. These nerves enable a plasmoid to detect light, heat, texture, sound, pain, and vibrations. Wow, they got the whole shebang. Plasmoids can stiffen the outer layers of their bodies to maintain a human-like shape, so they can wear clothing and accessories. They speak by forcing air out of tubular cavities that constrict to produce sound. When plasmoids sleep, they lose their rigidity and spread out, and are thus sometimes mistaken for a rock or some other feature of the environment, like a puddle or puke. Yeah, imagine taking orange and green dye and just like cosplaying puke. No, I gotta take a sip. You have the following racial traits. You're an ooze! The first ooze, I think that is in the game, which is cool. You're medium or small, which is the same as the Hadazee, right? Medium or small. Walking speed 30 feet. Amorphous, you can squeeze through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide, provided you are wearing and carrying nothing. You have advantage on ability checks you make to initiate or escape a grapple. Again, oozes. Automatically pretty good grapplers if they want to be. Similar to the GIF. Dark vision within 60 feet. I would love to see... Maybe it's too strong. But I would love to see a plasmoid have blind sight. Because, like, hold on. Let's look at a gelatinous cube, which is like the most iconic ooze in the game, right? Look at a gelatinous cube. A gelatinous cube has blind sight to 60 feet, right? Why not the plasmoid? Why does the plasmoid only get dark vision and not blind sight? I have to assume that it's a balancing issue, but I feel like blind sight would be very nice here. You can hold your breath for 1 hour. There goes the trivializing the water segment. Still not salty about it, or still a little salty about it rather. You have resistance to acid and poison damage. You have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. That explains how they can use the dyes to change their color. Shape self. As an action, you can reshape your body to give yourself a head, 1 or 2 arms, 1 or 2 legs, and makeshift hands and feet. Or you can revert to a slimeless blob. While you have a human-like shape, you can wear clothing and armor made for a humanoid of your size. As a bonus action, you can extrude a pseudopod that is up to 6 inches wide and 10 feet long, or absorb it into your body. As part of the same bonus action, you can use this pseudopod to manipulate an object, close a door, open or close a door, or a container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. The pseudopod contains no sensory organs and can't attack, activate magic items, or lift more than 10 pounds. That's important, actually. I don't know if that was in the UA. The pseudopod not being able to attack or activate magic items and stuff like that. That's important because that means that you cannot grapple someone from 10 feet away. Which is something that I thought you were able to do in the UA, but you can't do that here because grappling is a type of attack. That's really it, huh? I think this is like the first race that doesn't involve re-rolling dice and stuff. A+. I love this race. I think this race should have blind sight. I would trade hold breath for blind sight, then it's perfect. Because again, it really the gelatinous cube. And I know that they're different. I know they're different races from different settings. But gelatinous cube doesn't have hold breath. Gelatinous cube has blind sight. And hold breath seems arbitrary. Why do they have to hold why do they get to hold their breath? Specifically, why do they have to hold their breath and just not breathe? Because, like, is it because of the way they absorb oxygen? Nothing in the blurb explains why they are able to sustain oxygen for so long. I suppose if we want to be charitable, we can say that you can balloon yourself and just hold a bunch of air inside the balloonified version of you, and then that's all your oxygen. It's a good question. I'm gonna look up a portable hull. Because a portable hull mentions something about suffocating. Once the hull is folded up, a creature within the hull's space can use an action to make a strength check. The creature forces its way out. Appears within 10 feet. A breathing creature within a closed portable hull can survive for up to 10 minutes, after which time it begins to suffocate. So I feel like hold breath for an hour is very generous, considering that a portable hull only gives you 10 minutes. Because that would be how I imagine the justification for hold breath works. Because the only other way to explain it is that you simply don't need as much oxygen, which seems strange to me. It seems arbitrary. So if it were me, I would reduce hold breath. I would be like, you could hold your breath for 10 minutes longer than normal, based on your constitution score or whatever. And then I would change the dark vision to blind sight, because I think blind sight is cool. And it's hard to be a blind person in the game. There's like no easy way to get blind sight. So I would love to see a race with blind sight as a special feature. Other than that, it's like an A+ race. I like it. It's like probably my favorite race of the book. Maybe the Autonomes is a close second. Drycreen is our last one. We're almost done. I said it was gonna be a relatively shorter stream, but I can talk a lot. If I put my mind to it, I can be quite a chatterbox. All right, this is our famous bug boy. This is tricky right now. This is a person that's playing in our Ultimate Academy game. Time to judge them harshly. Drycreen have insectile features and 2 pairs of arms. Immediately, 2 pairs of arms is huge. So good. Their bodies are encased in protective chitin. They can alter the coloration of this carapace to blend in with their natural surroundings. So they got a little bit of a predator vibe to them. Although Drycreen don't sleep, they do require periods of inactivity to revitalize themselves. Okay, this is interesting. I actually had a debate, a conversation with Tricky about this, with Sigbur who plays Tricky. Because I have rules for downtime and the amount of stuff you can do during that downtime. And I make a special note to understand the difference between like heavy activity, light activity, and inactivity. Inactivity typically being like sleep and long resting. Light activity being like, you know, reading and like keeping watch and things like that you would typically do. And then finally heavy activity being like, you know, casting spells and working out and doing a job and stuff like that. So I'm surprised to see this, and I know that when we go to the traits, they mention their sleeplessness involving light activity, as opposed to inactivity, which is covered in their bio. So it's like, it seems like Wizards of the Coast uses inactivity and light activity interchangeably, which is I think very interesting for people who are using their downtime. It kind of like goes to show that like the more and more you dig into like rules as written, the more inconsistencies that you find. And so it's so important to like banish the notion entirely that rules as written is so critical, and more just like understand the general rule and the general premise that your DM is using. That's why session zeros are so important. Even if everyone's an expert in Dungeons and Dragons, you want to have a session zero because everyone's interpretations of the rules are going to be different. And when those interpretations clash without any prior expectation or prior plan into handle rules disputes and stuff, it becomes a problem, you know? It becomes a big problem. Thri-kreen speak by clacking their mandibles and waving their antennae, indicating to other Thri-kreen what they are thinking and feeling. Other creatures find this method of communication difficult to interpret and impossible to duplicate. To interact with other folk, Thri-kreen rely on a form of telepathy. Again, psionics. So we've got the Astral Elf, the GIF, we have the Astral Elf, the GIF, and the Thri-kreen, all with huge psionic implications, as well as the Astral Wanderer background having a psionic implication. All right, let's take a break from the last set of traits to talk about Felix's next homebrew item. A martial artist with Earth Sigil Gauntlets is the most dangerous individual to date. I mean, that's harsh, man. All you gotta do is like make a Tinder, spice it up with a few photos. Can't be that dangerous to date. Just go out to dinner, watch a movie. All right, I'm done making that joke. They can output, using the energy of the body, they can output more power to the sigils on top of the source of blood. So the body's energy is different from the blood of the body. Is this like relating to how does this mechanic work in D&D? If you want to use like this setting for D&D, how do you like handle a body's energy source? Because my immediate instinct is to use their hit dice. Like you've got hit dice and you can spend hit dice to empower your weapons and such. That was my imagination and how it worked. But separating energy of the body versus energy of the blood, I'm imagining a scenario where using energy of the blood might reduce your hit points, and then the energy of the body reduces your hit dice, and it's sort of like a roundabout way of reducing your energy. Or is it more like energy of the blood might reduce your hit dice and that cause you to spend hit dice, and energy of the body can cause exhaustion, which is a whole other deal. Like mechanically tying that narrative of using the energy of the body or the blood to empower a weapon, I think it's a very common way to go about homebrewing those magic items. With their training, they can send pillars of earth to puncture enemies, or to constrict the enemies with the same thin pillars. Do like a little bit of a jail time. Go to horny jail. They could also send walls up with more expertise than regular Earth Sigil Gauntlet users. So they're earthbenders. I just realized, martial artists, they're just earthbenders. Hell yeah. The common attack is the Earth Spike, dealing 1d12 piercing damage. Energy of the body causes exhaustion. Blood usage causes blood loss, but it's probably a reduction of health or hit dice. That's crazy. Energy of the body would be crazy strong. Exhaustion is no joke. You get 6 levels of exhaustion and you're fucking dead. That's like, 8 gates Lee kind of nonsense. Going Naruto stuff. Expose all those chakras. But it also makes sense why, martial artist, monk, and ki ties into that so well. Cool. Is the Earth Spike like a projectile? Or is it like shooting from the ground? I'd imagine it would be like a projectile. All right, let's talk about the Thri-Kreen traits. You are a monstrosity. Sorry, I had to say that. We have a monstrosity in the group. So what do we have? Humanoid. We have humanoid construct. 2 more humanoids, an ooze, and a monstrosity. We have the whole monster's corner here. You are medium or small. You can choose a size. It's like, wait, there can be small Thri-Kreen? I didn't know that. I had the implication that Thri-Kreen were tall as hell. Dig, are you in the chat? Is it Tricky like 8 feet tall? How can they grow that tall if small Thri-Kreen exist? How does that happen? Are they like ants? Is this a Thri-Kreen for ants? All right. Walking speed is 30 feet. Classic. While you aren't wearing armor, your carapace gives you a base armor class of 13. Wait, this is just the same as the Autonome. I don't know. And it has a chameleon bonus too. As an action, you can change the color of your carapace to match the color and texture of your surroundings, giving you advantage on dexterity stealth checks made to hide in those surroundings. I remember this was a topic of like 10 minutes of discussion with Sig about like what that means. And we decided that it meant like when you spend an action to hide, you would get advantage on your stealth check. Or rather, you could spend an action to take form of a surrounding, and then on your next action, when you try to hide, assuming the environment still matched, you would get the advantage. Sharp thin pillar shooting out from a surface made out of earth or significant material. Of significant material amount. So like dirt and rocks and maybe even gravel. That'd be interesting. Toss them in the wood cage. They'll be pacified. Dark vision, see in dim light as they're 60 feet. Standard stuff. You have 2 slightly smaller secondary arms below your primary pair of arms. The secondary arms can manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, pick up or set down a tiny object, or wield a weapon that has the light property. This is way better than the dexterousness of the feet that the Hadasi have. Especially if it's a light weapon. Can you imagine if you could make an attack with all your weapons as a bonus action? Like if you were using 2-weapon fighting? That would be like the one way that 2-weapon fighting becomes good. If you just have 4 weapons and it's like, I use my main attack with this weapon, and then I use my 2-weapon fighting to attack with all my other weapons! That'd be the one way to make 2-weapon fighting good. Hold on. Ah. Nice. This is incredible. Sleepless. You do not require sleep and can remain conscious during a long rest, though you must still refrain from strenuous activity. That's how they describe it here, which we understood was light activity. Although this narrative blurb implies inactivity. I'm gonna keep it at light activity just because I think it's cooler. It's more fun that way, but it's really strong to be able to do light activity while resting. Especially if you're like a wizard. Like the Thri-Kreen here, these guys are like natural wizards. It's so good. I'm scared. Thri-Kreen, I think, might even be stronger than the Hadasi with the features they have. Their secondary arms are so good. It basically means that you've got a shield all the time forever. There's no way you're not wearing a shield, which means that your base armor class is basically 15, which is crazy. It's so good. You can start off with an armor class of 19 or 20, depending on how well your dexterity is. It's crazy sick. And that's with no magic items, with no armor. It's just a shield. Without the assistance of magic, you can't speak the non-Thri-Kreen languages you know. Instead, you use your telepathy to convey your thoughts. This is kind of interesting because it means that So I was thinking about this. It seems like a boon, right? Because telepathy is just strong. Telepathy is just really good. Being able to silently communicate is really good. But it also means that you get kind of limited when it comes to nature stuff, right? Like, being able to mentally communicate your thoughts to creatures that need to know a language means that Thri-kreen would probably have it harder than anyone else being a druid or a ranger, because they would probably find it that much harder to communicate with beasts, because beasts don't understand the language. You would have to spend an awful lot of time training a beast to respond to your mandibles or your antenna, assuming you didn't do what we did in Ultimate Academy and house rule that common counted as a Thri-kreen language. But that would be like the big disadvantage that I see with Thri-kreen telepathy. Not just the fact that you can't communicate with like normally with people, because who the hell cares? You're just gonna telepathically communicate with them anyway, so who gives a heck? The real problem is that this makes Thri-kreen druids and rangers, rules as written, kind of really hard to manage. Weird. Your telepathic link to a creature is broken if you or the creature move more than 120 feet apart, or if either of you is incapacitated, or if either of you mentally breaks the contact. These guys are really strong. I personally, I think they could do, if I'm looking at this, and I'm not gonna nerf the race thing, so do not panic, but just giving my honest thoughts, I think Hadazee and Thri-kreen are absolutely the strongest races in the book right now. I think they both need some tuning. I already talked about the Hadazee. For the Thri-kreen, I'd probably drop their armor class from the carapace. Like you already have ways to be sneaky. You already have extra arms which guarantee a shield. You don't need to have a base armor class of 13. It's really not necessary, especially if you're small, right? Like, I kind of get it for the Autonome. They're small, but they're constructs. They're fucking machines. And that sort of explains what's going on there. But like, exoskeletons, they're strong, but they're not that strong. Armor class of 13 is wild, in my opinion. If I were to balance them, I'd probably drop the extra armor class. Probably everything else can go, but the armor class of Chameleon Carapace is the only thing I would drop. And that does it. That's all the Astral Adventures Spelljammer stuff. My takeaways. I think GIF kind of suck. I think GIF are the worst out of the list. If I had to make a tier list, I don't have a tier list template or anything. But if I had to make a tier list real quick, I would say GIF are probably among the worst, because their Astral Spark is going to add up to, I mean, at most it's 36 damage over the course of a day. Not that great. They get a swimming speed, whatever. Their Firearms Mastery is going to be overridden by most features, like the Gunner feat or the Sharpshooter feat, which you'll probably take. And so that Firearms Mastery feature will kind of become redundant. Which means that if you're a GIF, you get a swimming speed, you get 36 extra damage at level, you get your proficiency squared damage at whatever levels you are. So like if you're like a level 5 character, you get 9 extra damage over the course of a day. And then you get advantage on strength saves and extra carrying capacity, which for most games, if they're not using variant encumbrance, again, not really relevant. I would say GIF probably have it the worst. Astral Elves might be the next worst above them, because they're just elves, and elves are a pretty standard race. They get a little bit extra because they get the cantrip, they get the extra skill and tool proficiency. So probably Astral Elves, right above the GIF. After that, I think from a terms of power, Plasmoid probably above the Astral Elf, or maybe tied with Astral Elf. I really like the Plasmoid. I think they're perfect. I would love to see them with blind sight. So with that in mind, I'd probably put Plasmoid below Astral Elf and above GIF. After that, you get the Autonome. Pretty solid stuff. I worry about how efficient mending can be to replace short rests. But aside from that, I think everything else they have is fine. Especially because they mentioned that their 6 hours is specifically inactive, motionless. Funnily enough, it makes it hold on, I'm actually curious. It's actually funny enough because even though they remain conscious during their sentry's rest, they're not immune to magical sleep the way an elf is, which is weird, personally. If I were to tweak Autonome, I'd probably give them immunity to sleep, and I would probably maybe balance that out by like maybe changing how the healing machine works, maybe removing Spare the Dying from the list. Although I guess it's fine considering that resurrection spells still don't affect it, so probably this is okay. Maybe I would remove the eats, drink, or breathe. I don't understand why they have a lifespan, but they don't need to eat or drink. Might be strange. But yeah, I would probably give them like something, like I said, give them something for and make up for it. What was I saying? Right, give them immunity to magical sleep, and make up for it by like removing one of these trivialities. Then after that, I would say Thri-kreen and Hadizee are tied for absolutely strongest races. And I already mentioned what I would do to change them. Hadizee, I would rework their glide so it's not as abusable. Thri-kreen, I would change their armor class. Remove the bonus AC from their chameleon carapace. Or at the very least, I would let them pick. I would let them pick whether they're a warrior class that has big, tough chitin exoskeleton, and they get the armor class bonus, but it's solid color or whatever. Or if they're like a worker class Thri-kreen, if you want to have like that warrior, that fighter bug, worker bug sort of aesthetic, you would choose whether you're a warrior Thri-kreen, you get the armor bonus, or whether you're a worker Thri-kreen who wants to hide from predators, and they would get the chameleon bonus. That's probably what I would do. Yeah. And maybe I would like nerf the telepathy a bit, because telepathy's kind of weird. Or I would, as a DM, knowingly be putting these guys in situations where animals are important. But too late for that now. There you go. I'm curious. Again, I'll say once more. We mentioned it briefly when we're talking about Felix's collection of homebrew masterpieces. We have a Discord. I would love to hear your thoughts on the Spelljammer races and your thoughts on my thoughts on the Spelljammer races. With that said, we're gonna take a short break. Tiny 2-minute break while I set up the 1D&D video so I can figure out what the heck my thoughts are on 1D&D. Got you in a sec. Hey, I'm back. Sorry, I was just scarfing down another bite of pizza before we're jumping back in. Hello. Wow, the black box. It's real. The legends are true. I'm just gonna set up the I'm just gonna set up our video, I suppose. I've got the 1D&D trailer listed here. Let's go ahead. Ooh, excuse me. Let's go ahead and pump the brakes on the music for just a split second. And appreciate this. I've never really done like reaction videos before. I'm worried about like getting cooked by like DMCA or whatever, but I think we'll be okay. Shh. Get your popcorn, fellas. It's starting.
Dungeons & Dragons is a thrilling adventure, one we play together as Dungeon Master and players, but also an adventure itself. Now, we stand at the start of a new generation of Dungeons & Dragons.
I'm missing the bottom here.
And today, we're going to introduce some of what's in store for us as we embark on an initiative that we call 1D&D.
Growing up, I loved fantasy, but I never saw myself as the hero because I didn't think it was possible for someone who looked like me, who acted like me, who was like me to be that hero.
We want to continue to reach out to folks who are interested in fantasy, who love storytelling, who enjoy spending time with their friends and creating these collective stories that they can remember for years to come.
D&D's been around for 50 years, and there's very little that persists that long that becomes
Oh my God, it's Gabe Newell.
People can really just not only share, but literally hand down to their kids. What we want to do is just add to that legacy.
We did a smart thing with 5th edition by listening to the fans. And what came out of that process was a system that is stable, that is well loved, that incorporates the best elements of earlier editions. Now that we have that, we are no longer in the position where we think of D&D as an addition. It's just D&D.
5th edition is a rule set that has worked for so many people and has brought so many new and exciting folks into the game. It's more important for us to continue to cultivate and respect and love what it is, you know, that the world has told us is working for them.
The sort of change you're going to see isn't about taking anything away from you, isn't about changing any of that stuff that you love.
That sounds like damage control.
Giving you more options, giving you more choices you can make, more character types you can play, more magic spells you can cast. Basically, you know, we're very happy with the game the way it is today. We just want to build on that. We're revising the major core rule books that every player uses, the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual.
One of my focuses, specifically, is the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm going to make some structural changes to make it more
This is Perkins, right?
to new DMs.
When it comes to art for D&D, it's about as versatile as our players. We want to show that the person you are can appear in the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's what 2024 holds, is this promise of getting new versions of the books that are the game you know, but reflect where the game is presently.
1D&D has 3 pillars, and one is the rule set, which is
built
on the base.
This is what I'm waiting for.
But updated.
This is what I'm waiting for.
Building upon the rules that have been established, the storytelling, and expanding our world and our rule system.
When we say building on top of 5th edition, what we mean is that all the adventures and supplements that have been
Wait, that does say barf?
What we mean is that
oh, barf.
And supplements that have been released in the past 10 years.
I had to do a double take there real quick.
Evolution of D&D.
Then there's D&D Beyond, which is the base of our digital tools and assists.
I wonder if the digital tool for D&D Beyond is going to be like forcefully updated to handle 1D&D.
All kinds of different apps and websites to have a true integrated D&D experience. What we want to do is actually just provide all the tools that the players need to play themselves in one space.
Right now, with the acquisition of D&D Beyond, we've already started to dip our toe into digital, and it was a fantastic partnership that we have going, but we can add more.
Digital physical bundles is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and now that D&D Beyond is part of our family, it's finally something we can do. Your content is
Was D&D Beyond not part of Wizards before?
Physical books,
Man, I'm out of the loop.
Portable versions that you can access through your phone or through your tablet or through your other device.
Then our future-facing aspect of this is the D&D
That was a hard cut. Hold on, can we go back for a second? I've done some video editing, and this was a hard cut, right?
Phone or through
Hold
your
on,
tablet
right
or
here,
through
right
your
here,
other
right here.
device. Then our future phase.
That, then our future. That was not the same take. Those two lines were not the same take. This is unrelated to D&D, but I just wanted to mention that was not the same take. It was so obviously not the same take. It caught me off guard. All right, let's go.
Facing aspect of this is the D&D digital, which will become a full play space for you to have experiences that are more immersive.
Pre-alpha in-engine
Right now, we're in early
footage.
Development of our digital experience.
Okay.
We can play a game, roll some dice, see the miniatures moving around in a 3D play space, but that's just the core of it.
We chose the Unreal Engine for several reasons.
Oh, it's Unreal.
Make it look dope.
That's the first thing.
Uh-oh.
Number two,
We got some edgy
is
going
take care
on.
of the lazy DM, because we're all lazy DMs.
This is true. Truth. Absolutely true.
Access all of the tools that you need in order to get the adventure started. So we use a camera technique called tilt shift. It actually makes things look small. We want to make sure that the experience for you is that you're experiencing a miniature set.
The tilt shift camera was really chosen so that people understood that this wasn't a video game, but it is a digital experience. We want to give people more minis, more options for character customization. You can actually change the features, do what you want with it. And you're going to use this miniature approach to tell stories just like you do in physical tabletop.
To have your character live.
So this is very interesting. I'm excited to see what they do when they get the cuz like this kind of stuff it's so hard to like modularize. You're gonna live or die based on how expansive its collection is. So they better start working with Hero Forge, I guess.
I'm transported there, but I'm not limited by the digital technology.
We might give you a pre-made campaign from us that has an exciting castle or keep with a dungeon inside of it, exciting NPCs, but then you're going to be able to take this playset, take it apart, and build your own. We're going to have a really robust tool for you to be able to create your own dungeons.
This is just the start of 1D&D, and we are relying on all of you to help us out and figure out that future together.
What you're going to be able to see starting in August is a steady release of these playtest packages where you'll be able to engage with key aspects of the game, provide us with feedback that then we will digest, process, interpret, analyze, and
listen to, hopefully.
Really, it's you shaping the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons, and we want to hear exactly what you have to say.
Playtesting starts today. Go to dndbeyond.com, download the playtest packet, and get ready to let us know where
playtest
you'd
packet.
like this next leg of the adventure to go.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought this was gonna explain the summary of the rules, and I feel kind of silly. No, those are my recommendations. Don't look at those. Doxed says I. I mean, whoops, I accidentally just showed you a big advertisement. I thought they were going to be talking about the rules a bit more thoroughly, but that's what this is for. We're going to go ahead and download the rules, I suppose. I think you get them from here. But I want to share my first thoughts about that, about the video. So, I honestly don't care terribly much about, the tweaks that they're doing to the rules. I know that there's some interesting stuff there that I will shed some opinions on. But every DM worth their salt has their own interpretation of the rules. I even talked about how we interpret the rules when we were talking about the Spelljammer stuff. So having a definitive authority is nowhere near as important as it might seem. And I'm sure that a lot of rule changes that might be coming are going to be straight up ignored by people. Not because they don't like 1D&D or don't like change, but just because they don't like that one specific rule, you know? And so I'm going to try to see what those rules are and understand the bubble that wait, let me clarify what I mean by the bubble. So like imagine you have a set of rule changes that all operate in a bubble together. Each rule might have an implication when you see it at face value by itself, but when you look at it as sort of the whole bubble of changes, the context might make more sense. Like for example, I wanted to be a reaction to glide with the monkey, with the Hadizee, but I can't do that if the monkeys also need a reaction to reduce damage. So anyway, I'm excited to see that, and I'm honestly more excited about the VTT. They obviously are setting up like a virtual tabletop experience. That looks pretty exciting. I used to be reluctant when dealing with their character sheets. I used to do my D20 I used to do my D&D character sheets just directly on Roll20, and I've recently started using D&D Beyond to make my characters, and they've been pretty good. I really like them. I like them arguably more than the Roll20 sheets. So I'm not writing off their VTT yet, but it's gonna be dependent on how easy it is to set up for DMs. Like if it doesn't take like hours to set up a map, or design a castle, and how many options there are for DMs. Because having lots of options as players for your characters and customization is always really nice, and people really like to focus on that. But having options as a DM for creating stuff efficiently and easily also improves the overall experience of the game, because those initial core choices a DM makes is the core choice, the first choice that is ever made in any D&D game. The first choices anyone ever makes in any D&D game is what the DM decides to run and how they decide to run it. And that is going to like cascade into a bunch of other decisions. That one decision, that one small group of decisions will sort of determine the series of decisions that are available to all the other players. All right. So let's talk about the playtest. Wizards Presents offered you a glimpse of blah blah blah, codenamed 1D&D. In other words, you're not a new edition, as I thought. It's just basically we're going to be keeping expanding 5e. They really like 5e. It'll come with new rules for D&D and a digital play experience to level up your tabletop gaming. We also announced physical and digital product bundling for Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Let's go. We're sure that you've been left with plenty of questions. Excited to share details. General, your feedback. All right, let's go to general. 1D&D is the code name for the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons, bringing together 3 initiatives that will shape the future. We're going to update the rules. This takes what we love about 5th edition, updates the rules of the game to reflect the feedback we've heard from players and where the game is today. Wonder what feedback they're taking to heart. D&D Beyond. This will be the platform for your digital D&D collection content and tools. So they really want to make D&D Beyond your one-stop shop for Dungeons and Dragons in the digital world. Which is fine, you know. Like people are pretty satisfied with most digital distributors like the Epic Game Store or Steam, most especially. No one really gets mad at Steam for being the one-stop shop for digital gaming. And finally, digital D&D digital play experience and early development. D&D digital will offer immersive player experience, rich creation tools. This is just filler. This is kind of just filler. Our goal is to give you more D&D wherever you play, whenever you want. Fun. Is 1D&D introducing a new edition of D&D? It's bigger than that? Well, it sounds like it's not. It sounds like it's smaller than that because it's only expanding on the existing 5e rules. The next generation of D&D with more comprehensive versions of core rulebooks that millions of players have enjoyed. So I don't know if this means that they're just going to be like coagulating the rules of like the player's handbook and like Xanathar's guide and Tasha's guide to everything, or sorry, Tasha's guide to, I don't even remember. But they might be like comprehensively combining all these rule sets to form a single cohesive source, or they might be just trying to revamp a bunch of stuff. It's very vague. The rules will be backwards compatible with 5th edition adventures and supplements and offer players and dungeon masters new options and opportunities. That's actually pretty good. That's really nice because it means, well, hopefully, that means that if 1D&D is actually good, and like, let's say, you know, Ultimate Academy is the best campaign setting ever and the best adventures, and we're playing it years from now because it's so good. Everyone loves Ultimate Academy. The dream, right? Then it wouldn't be too hard to update the system to use 1D&D, and hopefully all of the house rule systems, all of the little homebrew that I've designed for that setting will mesh well with 1D&D, because right now I've designed all that homebrew to work really closely with the existing 5th edition system. So hopefully I wouldn't need to change much for it to work as closely with 1D&D's rule set. Yeah, the evolution of 5th edition has shown us it's less important to create new additions and more important to grow and expand the game you love with each new product. I think this sort of talks about, I think they might have got this because I think 5th edition started off very weak. Then as they added more supplementary stuff, it got more popular. Maybe that's where they're getting this impression. What does backwards compatible mean? It's a good question. It means that 5th edition adventures and supplements will work. Okay, well that's still really vague. For example, if you want to run Curse of Strahd, that book will work with the new versions. Our goal is for you to keep enjoying the content. Well, I mean, like, you haven't really answered the question, Wizards. Do you just mean, like, difficulty classes and mechanics will not need to be, like, we don't need to, like, spend hours translating the spells people know and ability scores and saving throws and, like, translating that? Because that was a big thing in 4th edition. Translating from 3.5 to 4e and then from 4e to 5e. 4e was such a weird child that, like, you couldn't translate adventures and monsters. You basically had to, like, take active effort transferring, like, their stat blocks or the layouts of an adventure and the encounter design. That like, it, you know, that's like what it means to not be backwards compatible. I guess that's probably the way that this question should have been answered. You describe what's not backwards compatible about 4th edition, and they can be totally blunt about that if we're being honest. Because 4th edition, I love 4th edition, wasn't very backwards compatible with either 3.5 or 5e. And then they can, you know, that's what made 4e not compatible, and then this isn't going to do that. Just assuage those 4e fears. What is changing? There'll be many fundamental updates to D&D that we will collect your feedback on. This is like double speak. Is it going to be just an expansion of the existing rules, or are you just revamping everything fundamentally? Like, which one is it? I don't know if it can be both, Wizards. In the upcoming Unearthed Arcana playtest content, you'll see proposed updates to character backgrounds, races, classes, feats, information, presentation, and more. Okay. So updates to races and classes and stuff? That is, I'm not going to say alarming, but that is a red flag in terms of their backwards compatibility. Because updating a class, giving them new features or changing the way their features work, means updating character sheets. Changing how races work might mean updating character sheets or even updating stat blocks for monsters that have that race. So, like, that might change, like, that's gonna impact how backwards compatible it is. At least they're not changing, like, core stats and rules and stuff. That would be the big thing. That would, like, destroy backwards compatibility. Ultimately, the answer to that will change depends on what we hear from you throughout 1D&D playtest. So we're just gonna make a bunch of changes, and then we're gonna pull back the ones that you cry and scream about, which, spoiler alert, for us D&D players is gonna be every change. It's gonna be every change. We're not very accustomed to adaptability. We're like Pokemon players. The generation we started playing is the best generation. All the other generations can suck it. New core rulebooks are released in 2024. How can I find out more, stay up to date? Email preferences. How do I access the playtest materials? This is what we want. Log in with your D&D Beyond account and head over to the 1D&D claim page to unlock the Unearthed Arcana. You'll then see 1D&D, how I submit my feedback, blah, blah, blah. Digital play experience. We're not going to do any of that. Product bundles, I don't care. Playtesting the rules. Let's do it. Start playtesting. I don't want to read anymore. Click the button. Character origins. Wait, what? Is this it? Wait, I'm back to the FAQ. Back to the FAQ. Okay, wait. Let me double check again. 1D&D claim page. This is what I want. Claim 1D&D. Hell yeah, view the content. Why am I back here? What the heck? Is it this? Oh, we got a new video. Watch on YouTube.
We have a new unearthed arcana.
All right. Oh, this is an hour-long video. This is an hour long. You see that? All right, we don't have time for that. We're gonna download the PDF and skim through it. 21 pages. This is way better. We're gonna skim through this and I'll watch the video later. Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins, and Ray Winiger. This document is the first in a series of unearthed arcana that presents material design for the player's handbook coming out in 2024. The material here uses the rules in 2014 player's handbook. Oh my god, it's been 10 years. I need a minute. I feel so old now. I feel crazy old. I feel so stinking old. Oh my gosh, it's been 10 years for 5e. What a decade. All right. The material here uses the rules for that, except where noted. Providing feedback on this document is one way you can help shape the next generation. Character races. Okay. New races. New race rules. Background rules. I already kind of shared my opinion on why I didn't really like the new backgrounds. So, I mean, I guess if all the backgrounds are adapted to take their new approach, it'll probably make things just like even among everything. Although, I don't know. I'm not gonna judge. Starting languages. Was that really necessary? Feats. Every first level feat mentioned herein appears in the feat section, which contains both new and revised feat. Okay, so there are first level feats. That's a super common feedback. I want feats at earlier levels, which tied into that whole background thing. So if they have feats in first level, then hopefully that opens the design space to have more interesting background narrative features. And a rules glossary. In this document, any term followed by an asterisk appears in a glossary at the end. The glossary defines certain rules, terms that appear in this document. Playtest material. Before delving into new materials, please read the "This is playtest material" sidebar. Nope, I don't want to do that. Power level. The character options you read here might be more or less powerful. Oh well, that's covered in every unearthed arcana. Determining your origin. After choosing your character's class, usually you choose it before the class, it's time to consider the character's origin. Who are the character's ancestors? How did the character spend the years leading up to a life of adventure? To help answer those questions, you choose 3 things for the character: race, background, language. So now a language is a core choice along with race and background. Character's race represents ancestry and confers games traits to the character. Character's background is a collection of characteristics that represent the place and occupation that were most formative to the character. Character origin overview lists blah blah blah. Creature type, size, speed, all makes sense. A creature type has stars, so creature types are now special. Keep that in mind. Lifespan, special traits. They have background traits. Oh, this is a wait. Okay, so we have race traits. We have background traits. Okay. So the race you choose determines these things: type, size, speed, lifespan, and special traits like dark vision, I assume. And then your background determines these things: ability score bonuses. So now you get ability score bonuses based on your background, not based on your race. I really like that change. It dodges the entire issue while still leaving a lot of room for unique races without having you feel hamstringed. I really like that change. Skill proficiencies, which is as it is. Each background gives tool proficiency Thank you, wizards. Very cool. Free tools. I love tool proficiencies. Please give me more of those. Character learns a language. So, is that the language here, or is that a different language? So is it like common and then a language for my background, or is it common, a language for my background, and then any one language I want? Not clear. Feat. Each background provides the first level feat, a special ability acquired in the character's past. The feats are locked to your background. And I see that there's no background feature. So it looks like we're ditching the narrative features that came with the old backgrounds, which is a shame. I'm not a huge fan of that. I feel like just having a feat that is unrelated to your background would be better to provide this narrative structure. I don't know. I really liked having that, but oh well. Would an early industrial era D&D world be possible? Absolutely, Felix. Early industrial era reminds me of the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. Ravnica is a high medieval fantasy world, but it's very advanced. It's a super urbanized city, and I think off the top of my head, it's the closest thing I could see to heavy industrialization. Integrated with magic. You could also absolutely run a game like Shadowrun, which is a sort of sci-fi industrial game using D&D's rule set. You could easily take like Shadowrun setting, use a D&D rule set to play it. There's also, I think there's quite a few like steampunk style settings that I think are usable in D&D. I have a friend, her name is Yuki Goomba. She's a VTuber, and she ran a D&D game that was set in the Paper Mario universe with some of her own like custom homebrew stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Almost any setting is possible in D&D. Obviously, it's designed for medieval fantasy, but it's generally adaptable enough that you can use, a lot of different settings, including industrial. I would recommend the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica as a good starting source. Hey, Sig, I did like Spelljammer. I like Spelljammer a lot. I think Plasmoid, after reading through all the different factions, I think Plasmoid is my favorite race from that bit. I know I had already seen most of it from our time in the dungeon demo, but after reading all the other races, I like Plasmoids even more now. I kind of wish they had blind sight. I kind of wish they had blind sight instead of dark vision. I don't understand why they don't have blind sight. They're an ooze. Like all the oozes have blind sight, or even tremor sense. But oh well. Right now we're going over the 1D&D playtest material, and I'm mad. I'm happy, but I'm mad because they added a bunch of stuff that goes into your background. They added ability score bonuses. Ability score bonuses go to your background now, which I really like. I really like that. And then they made it so that all the backgrounds give a first level feat, which I don't like as much. I don't like it mostly because it's going to be replacing the narrative element of the background. Which I think was really neat. I just think, I mean, I don't have any good reason to say it was like better or more conducive to D&D. I think it was great for newer players to have a connection to the world through their background that they could rely on. Even if they didn't really like design a backstory for their character, they always had a connection based on the background they chose. I really liked that. But aside from that, I don't have any particularly good reason why they had to keep it. I just think it was neat to have a narrative feature, but now it's gonna be all feats, it seems. But yeah, I think they like the backgrounds personally because they were all too narrow. C'est la vie, I suppose. I like them because they were niche. I mean, mechanically, you want to choose a background for like its skills and its equipment, maybe. But it always felt nice when a background trait applied to you. It was like because it was kind of niche, you could tell that whenever it came up, the DM kind of like engineered that position and was like basically passed you the spotlight. Oh, okay, I kind of see what you're saying, Sig. Your character IDs are so wild and out there. That's what custom lineage is for, honestly. Custom lineage, in my opinion, is like the one-stop shop where it's like, you know, if you want to do like a character ID that doesn't really fit anywhere, even though custom lineage is like a race and not a background, it kind of encompasses the whole thing. And that's how I would cover it personally. Anyway, so that's my opinion so far. Liking one change, not really liking one of the other changes. A bit confused on languages, but we're gonna move on. Race and background together help bring your character's backstory into focus, and they distinguish the character from other members of the same class. For example, two characters might both be fighter, but one is a human guard, the other is a dwarf gladiator. And the two bring different capabilities and flavor. After choosing a race and a background, you choose a language that your character knows, in addition to common and whatever you get from your background. Okay, so you get 3 languages. You get common, you get one from your background, you get one that you choose. Combination of race, background, and language provides fertile soil, your imagination. When you choose your character's race, you determine whether your character is a member of the human race or a fantastical race. Yep. This document provides rules for human artling. What's an artling? Dragonborn, dwarf, elf, gnome, halfling, orc, and tiefling. Oh, not even a half orc anymore. Just straight up orcs. I also noticed that half elves aren't here either. The description of each race includes a section of the game's traits, which your character gains if you select that race. NPCs of the same ancestry don't necessarily have the same traits, as explained in the Master Manual. The traits here pertain to player characters. Necessarily is the key word. Racial traits, I would probably share them, but they leave it vague enough for the DM to decide. Children of different humanoid kinds. Thanks to the magical works of the multiverse, humanoids of different kinds sometimes have children together. For example, folk who have a human parent and an orc parent, or an elf parent and a particularly common. Yeah. If you'd like to play a child of such a wondrous pairing, I mentioned no half orcs, no half elves, choose 2 race options that are humanoid to represent your parents. Then determine which of those race options provides your game traits. Size, speed, special traits. You can mix and match visual characteristics, color, ear shape, and the like of those 2 options. For example, if your character has a halfling and a gnome parent, you might choose halfling for your gnome traits, and then to decide that your character has the pointed ears that are characteristic of a gnome. Finally, determine the average of 2 options' lifespans to figure out how long your character might live. Interesting. This is different from my typical ruling on different humanoid kinds, in which I sort of like made a tier list of fantastical races that were either compatible to have children or compatible, either were not compatible at all to have children or were compatible to have children, but the race was always that of the mother, or was so compatible that their children were half-breeds. And this sort of like generalizes that issue. I like this change. I do like this. I also like that it sort of removes the idea like, is a dragon sorcerer, is a dragonborn like a half dragon? Is a dragon sorcerer like a half dragon? No. These are all sort of pure races, and then you choose 2 ancestors. Don't start saying with Vaporeon. I swear, if Ardling is a Vaporeon, if the Ardling's like a merfolk Vaporeon, I'm gonna be like, all right, I decided in my new setting, everyone is going to be the descendant of an Ardling. All right, let's see the race features. Humans. I'm going to go ahead and skim through the flavor and go through the actual rule sets, since this is mostly looking at the playtest material. All right, they're humanoid. Their size is medium, between 4 and 7 feet. They're a creation based on my world building of Urinal. What kind of creation? Do you mean like a writing or like a piece of art? Humanoid, 4 to 7 feet, or small, chosen when you select a race. Humans can be small? Okay. Fine. Speed 30 feet. I liked having 25 feet when you're small. Call me old-fashioned. Lifespan is 80 years on average. Writing under the thread. Oh, okay. Sig, I know you're in that that Discord. Feel free to read it and give your thoughts. As a human, you have these traits. You gain inspiration whenever you finish a long rest. Okay, so those things are different. You gain proficiency in one skill. You gain the skilled feat or another first level feat of your choice. Is skilled feat not a first level feat? Because otherwise it's redundant. But okay, they're still just the versatile people that they always are. So all humans are variant humans now. Otherwise, also known as nothing has changed. Ardlings. Ardlings are supernal beings who are either born on the upper planes or have one or more ancestors who originated there. Their bright souls shine with the light of immortal beings who call the upper planes home. I'm reading this just because I don't know what an Ardling is. An Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal. Oh my god, it really fucking is Vaporeon. It really is fucking Vaporeon. Say, I'm timing you out. I'm timing you out. Get timed out. Where are you? Get timed out. I can't believe Vaporeon's actually in the game now. Why would you do this to me, Sig? I trusted you. Yet fucking here I am. Yes. Banished with no save. Alright, 3 celestial legacies. Exalted, heavenly, and idyllic. Which one would Vaporeon be? Fierce passions of Arborea. Alright. Vaporeon's an exalted Ardling. We have learned. Medium or small. 30 feet, 200 years. Angelic flight. As a bonus action, you sprout spectral wings for a moment and fly up to a number of feet equal to your speed. If you're in the air, you fall if nothing is holding you aloft. You can use this bonus action a number of times with your proficiency bonus, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Okay. But they're using a bunch of standard stuff. They're using a lot of the same terminology that they use in 5e, so everything here matches up with what I was imagining this was going to look at. Ooh, they get spells? Ah, you are the recipient of a celestial legacy that grants you magical abilities. Choose a legacy. Okay. Oh, shoot. There's the music. I have to, like, literally call the people who made Pretzel, which is where I get my music, because my music will start randomly. I have no idea why. But, you know, this is good timing. We needed some music. Okay, heavenly or idyllic. Yep. Chaotic good, lawful good, or neutral good. So you can only be good, which is interesting. You gain the initial benefit of the chosen legacy, which I guess is Thaumaturgy, Light, or Radiance. A cantrip that you learn. You also choose the animal you most closely resemble. Alright, we have animals. For some reason, you can't gain CP. What's CP? I don't know what the upper planes are, Sig. I'm less clear, but that when you say it that way, it makes sense. They're not part of the night. Channel points? Really? Huh. You're supposed to earn them automatically as long as you're watching, and you get a prompt regularly to pick them up. Can you spend them? Anyway. Starting at 3rd level and again at 5th level, you gain the ability to cast a higher level spell with this trait, as shown on the table. Once you cast a spell with this trait, you cannot cast that spell with it again until you finish a long rest. However, you can cast a spell using any spell slots you have the appropriate level. Okay. I've been watching for a bit. That's really weird. Sig, have you been getting channel points? And I know Felix has not been getting channel points because Felix is acutely aware of how many channel points they have at any given time. I will look that up after stream for you, Felix. I'm sorry you're not getting channel points. I do not control the point. I do not control the twitchy goodness. So unfortunately, I can't just start giving out points like candy. I would if I could, but I cannot do so. So it's up to Twitch. Yeah, go for it. Damage resistance. You have resistance to radiant damage. Right. Fair enough. Dragonborn. Draconic ancestry. Humanoid. Dragonborn can only be medium. I guess that's because if you are a small Dragonborn, you're a kobold. You're a small Dragonborn, you're just a kobold at that point. As a Dragonborn, you have these special traits. Your lineage stems from a dragon. Wait, were Ardlings also humanoid? Yeah, they were also humanoid. Okay. You get to choose a damage type. There's 2 ways to do acid damage, black or copper. Either you're a chromatic or metallic. You can spend but not gain. Oh shoot, thank you for the stretch redeem in any case. Hold on. Oh, okay. Lean back, lean back, lean back. Okay. That was good. Thank you for the stretch, Felix. Breath weapon. Oh, right. Damage resistance traits. You get a breath weapon. Yes, okay. You have dark vision, and you instinctively know the language of dragons. You can therefore speak, read, and write Draconic. Okay. It's interesting that that races still give you a language sometimes, even though that was sort of delegated to your background. I wonder if it's going to be common among races. I mean, let's look at the dwarves. Okay, they have to be medium. Funnily enough, they cannot be small. It seems really arbitrary which creatures are allowed to be small and which creatures are allowed to be medium. Alright, they got dark vision, dwarven resilience, resistance to poison, and advantage on saving throws. Okay. Toughness. This is like a hill dwarf. Forge wise. Your divine creator gave you an uncanny affinity for working with stone or metal. You gain 2 pool proficiency with 2 of the following options of your choice. Straightforward. As a bonus action, you gain tremor sense. What? With a range of 60 feet for 10 minutes? You must be on a stone surface or touching such a surface to use this tremor sense. The stone can be natural or worked. That's pretty sick. You can use this bonus action on style proficiency. Okay, yes, we know that. Elves. They are also only medium, it seems. I like how it mentions their size and then like clarifies the range of their height, and like sort of clarifies that like size is not necessarily the same as like your physical mass or like volume or whatever. As an elf, you get dark vision, elven lineage. Choose a lineage from the elven lineages table. Drow, high elf, wood elf. Huh. It's funny that they choose to have this elven lineage but don't have like Dwergar for the dwarves. I can kind of see that they're trying to generalize or trying to take sub races and try to like have them as a special feature, as opposed to like constantly documenting more and more sub races with each new book. All right, Felix, have a good lurk. Thank you for showing up and checking out the stream and supporting me so far. Loved our conversations. So we get a bunch of stuff. We get some rules, some bonuses at first level. Get extra dark vision. Nice. Dancing lights. Weird for Drow. You don't like lights so much. Why do you have dancing lights? Prestidigitation for free. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can replace that spell with a different cantrip from the arcane spell list. This is what I heard. I heard that spell lists are no longer based on class. They're based on like a power source. There's arcane, there's divine, there's primal, there's whatever, right? I like this. I actually kind of like this because knowing like 9 different spell lists was nightmarish, to say the least. And this kind of ties into that 4th edition stuff that I was talking about before. In 4th edition, there were like a handful of power sources that you drew all of your strength from, and characters generally shared categories. Your speed increases to 35 feet. You also know Druidcraft, and they get these spells, which look totally fine. High elves don't get Misty Step until 5th level, which is a little crazy. You have advantage on saving throws. Are they humanoid? They are. They're not Fae. Keen senses, so they get perception. Fine, I guess. You don't need to sleep, and magic can't put you to sleep. Get a rest in 4 hours. Standard stuff. Gnome traits. I love me some gnomes. Small, 30 feet. They got 5 feet. They got their feet back. Did you see that? Okay, so I guess 30 feet's just the norm. Is there gonna be any race that doesn't have 30 feet? I mean, I guess if you're like a wood elf, your speed goes up, but oh, they have a lineage. Why do dwarves not have a lineage? Dwarves just got like appropriated. Dark vision, advantage on saving throws. Neat. Gnomish lineage. Forest gnome or rock gnome. Intelligence casting ability, you choose the ability. Okay, forest gnomes have minor illusion or speak with animals. Rock gnome has mending and prestidigitation cantrips. They don't get oh, they have this really long blurb about the tiny clockwork device. Here's our World of Warcraft gnomes right now. You can spend 10 minutes casting prestidigitation to create a tiny clockwork device. So here's your tinkerers. With the device, you determine the function by choosing one effect of prestidigitation. Straightforward stuff. That's it. Dark vision, cunning in this lineage. Gnomes seem a little on the weak side. They don't get like a bunch of spells like the elves do. They don't get to swap their cantrip. Yikes. They don't get like the ancestry. Gnomes seem weak in this one. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about gnomes. Not so sure about gnomes. They seem weak. Alright. Halflings, let's go. Small. Are they even smaller than gnomes? I thought gnomes were smaller than halflings. They seem to be swapping positions recently. Okay. Also humanoid. Are gnomes humanoid? They are. Brave. Advantage on saving throws to end frightened. Nimbleness. You can move through the space of any creature that is of size larger than that is of a size larger than yours, but you cannot stop there. Can't stop there. Cannot be stopped. We roll a 1. You can reroll a die. You must use a new roll. Okay. On a D20 test, there's a new term. It's just called a D20 test. Does not attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. Now it's just called a test. Concern. Proficiency in stealth. Are halflings naturally stealthy? I don't remember that. Interesting choice, but I guess they needed something. Everyone else having perception and stuff. Orcs, let's go. Humanoid medium. I'm like half expecting a large creature to be default now. I don't think you're allowed to have large creatures. You're either medium or small or both. All right, humanoid. 30 feet. Adrenaline. Take a dash action. You can take a dash action as a bonus action. And you can do it proficiency bonus. Not bad. I kind of like that. Interesting. I like this interesting stuff. Dark vision, powerful build, relentless endurance. So you just don't get to die once. Seems pretty good to me. They don't get a lot of spells or anything like that, but bonus action dash is nice. Bonus action dash is pretty good, and it has temporary HP. I like this. Tiefling, there's like a bajillion different styles of tieflings. Who knows what this is going to be? Okay, they got abyssal, chthonic, and infernal. So demon, devil, or Cthulhu? Humanoid, medium, or small. So we can have tiny devils, but not tiny dwarves. Why? Why can't small tieflings just be imps? Why can't we have imps in the game? I want to play an imp. All right, tieflings get dark vision, fiendish legacy, which is I guess what these are. Resistance to poison, necrotic, or fire damage. And you get either poison spray, chill touch, or firebolt. That improves to ray of sickness, false life, or hellish rebuke, and then hold person, ray of enfeeblement, or darkness. All right. Oh, and finally one more. You know the thaumaturgy cantrip. When you cast it with this trait, the spell uses the same spell casting ability you use for your fiendish legacy trait. Does thaumaturgy require a ability? I guess it's just a check. I guess it's just a double check on anything. Because you need an ability check for basically any spell. Character backgrounds. Your character background is a collection of characteristics that represent the place and occupation that were most formative for the character where they embarked on a life of adventure. Oh, we have to see some backgrounds, right? Sick. All right. I get to see what their how their feats work. This is what I'm really interesting. What? Oh, this is a build your background. Okay. You have an option to build your background, sort of the custom lineage kind of deal. So this is interesting. Instead of having a custom lineage as a race, it is a build your background feature. I wonder if they're going to use custom lineage as well for race, or if they're going to rely on the sort of half and half ancestor system. Okay. Get the two, choose two skills, choose one tool, choose one language. You get to choose even from the rare languages, which is neat. Choose one first level feat. The character gets 50 gold to spend on starting equipment. Since 2014, characters have received ability scores from several sources, either from a race that has the ability score increased trait, or from everything, or from the ability score rules in Culture of Everything, Monsters of the Multiverse, or other books. If you make a character using those older sources and get an ability score increase from it, the characters don't also get ability score increase from background. Clearly, yeah. I guess that requires saying for clarity's sake, even though it seems pretty obvious to me. Okay, let's look at the same background. So it's, you know, you get +2, +1, insight, religion. Oh. I don't like that the background chooses which is the +2 and which is the +1. I would rather have the ability scores just be wisdom and intelligence, and you choose which one is more important to you. That's my first piece of genuine feedback. I would like for the ability score bonuses to be assignable on your background. All right, then supervision, insight, religion, calligraphers, celestial, and then you get, so it's just, you get magical, you get magic initiate. So you just get a feat. It's not like a unique feat to the background. It's just a feat. The rules are not bad so far. I like them. I will have to get used to dealing with the navigation, to dealing with no narrative stuff. Probably the way I would handle it is just like ask my players to create extra bonds, because right now the rules for personalities, it's not really strictly enforced, but you typically want your character to write down, you want to write down 2 personality traits, an ideal, a bond, and a flaw. And probably I'll just ask my characters to write an extra bond, maybe write an extra flaw, and that will cover the narrative aspect that will be missing from backgrounds from now on. If I think about it in those terms, then the backgrounds are actually pretty solid. There's nothing about 1D&D that I don't like so far. except for the hard-coded numbers. That would be my one piece of feedback so far. Get some equipment. I'm not going to worry too much about the equipment. Artisan, you get all that. You get crafter. I'm realizing that they're all going to be very straightforward. So I'm just going to skip the backgrounds and go to the feats, which is what I really care about. Yeah, I'm just gonna go through these because it's just gonna be ability scores in a feat, and I don't know what all the feats do until I read through them. Starting languages. Yes. You must meet any prerequisite. Oh, okay. These are standard languages, rare languages. Let me see. Common. Ooh, common sign language is a different language. Is that covered by any background? An urchin. Urchins get common sign language. Does that replace like thieves can't? No way. That's interesting. I don't know if I would make common sign language. That's really interesting. You know, I'll take it. I think it's fine. Common sign language makes sense. It can't be an alternative to common because it doesn't make sense to know common sign language and not common. So yeah, that's fine. I think it's interesting. It's nice and inclusive too. I would never have thought about it, that's for sure. But Dwarvish, Elvish, Giant. Giant is considered a standard language. Gnomish, Goblin, Halfling, and Orc. Is Draconic not a common language? Huh. I feel like Draconic should be a common language. Dragons are legendary, but they're also so legendary that no one would have not heard of dragons. Draconic is probably a rare. Draconic is probably should be a common language. I noticed that Druidic and Thieves' Cant are now rare languages. I kind of like that. I kind of like that you don't have to be a rogue or a druid to know these languages. I'm going to assume you get them automatically anyway for being part of that class. But now you can be associated with them. I like that too. If a feat is repeatable, it can take it more than once. Okay, repeatable feats. I remember the tough feat in 3.5 had something like that. Okay, parts of a feat. This is the nitty and gritty of what we really want. If each feat has a level, to take a feat, your level must equal or exceed the feat's level. This is similar to another tabletop RPG I used to play. I know people have said that this 1D&D shares a lot of commonalities with what was it, Pathfinder? But reading this reminds me of another tabletop RPG called 13th Age, which was quite good. They took feats, and feats had tiers. So your character would be at a certain tier, and you would take feats of that tier. And then when you advanced a tier, you could advance the feats that tier as well, or take new feats of the new tier. It was really cool. All right, alert. When you roll initiative, you add your proficiency bonus. Immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap your initiative with the initiative of one willing ally in the same combat. You can't make the swap or if you or the ally are incapacitated. Are you rolling initiative if you're incapacitated? I guess technically you would be. Crafter. You're adept at crafting things and bargaining with merchants. Whenever you buy a non-magical item, you receive a 20% discount on it. Ah. When you craft an item using a tool with which you have proficiency, the required crafting time is reduced by 20%. Okay. That would require you to know, that would require you to have explicit rules for crafting time, which so far isn't really covered in the PHB. Healer. If you have a healer's kit, you can expend one use of it and tends to a creature within 5 feet of you as an action. That creature can expend one of its hit dice, and then you roll that die. The creature regains a number of hit points equal to the roll, plus your proficiency bonus. Whenever you roll a die to determine the number of hit points you restore with the spell, or with this feat's battle medic benefit, you can re-roll the die if it rolls a 1, and you must use the new roll. Love it. Love this. I like seeing a healer benefit from magic, but also not need to benefit from magic. Lucky. You have a number of luck points equal to your proficiency bonus. Yay! Lucky is not the ultimate level 1 feat because it scales. D20 test. You can spend 1 luck point to give yourself advantage on the roll. So it's different than a reroll, strictly. When a creature rolls a d20 for an attack roll, you can spend 1 luck point to impose disadvantage. Interesting. They nerfed Lucky hard. Lucky's really nerfed. Is it worth taking now? I don't know. It probably isn't worth taking until you like get to a higher level. Okay. Magic Initiate. Choose 1 spell list, Arcane, Divine, or Primal. You get 2 cantrips and a first level spell. Sounds fine. A Musician. You gain tool proficiency with 3 musical instruments. That's a lot of musical instruments. As you finish a short rest or a long rest, you can play a song with which you have tool inspiration and give inspirations to allies who hear the song. Again, inspiration works differently in this game. Interesting. This kind of reminds me of the Inspiring Leader feat. Savage Attacker. Nothing is repeatable. Oh, wait. Yes, you must choose a different spell list each time. So Magic Initiate's repeatable, but nothing else has been repeatable so far. Damaging Strikes. Oh, Skilled is repeatable. Hell yeah. When you take a sneak attack action and hit a target with a weapon, you reroll the weapon's damage dice twice. Wait. Oh. So you have advantage on a damage roll. Don't I have a class feature that does this? I think I have that for short rest healing. Skills feat is a first level feat, so the human trait is redundant. You can just say any first level feat. Which means that humans are still really strong. If I go back here to the humans, they still have given humans an extra feat that no other race gets. Although I guess having 2 feats versus 1 feat is better than having 1 feat versus 0 feats. But humans still get an extra feat compared to everyone else. That issue, kind of, has not been resolved. Because feats are typically pretty powerful. It's very hard for racial features, like, it's really hard for racial features to really justify not taking a feat. Although, I suppose that only allowing yourself to take first level feats is what makes it more feasible, because the stronger feats can be sort of level locked. So fine, I guess it's okay. Tavern Brawler. Choose 3 skills and it's repeatable? Yo, Skilled is so good. 3 skills. That's like better than Musician. There's like no excuse to not have proficiency with every skill at that point. Be a rogue, take this twice. You're the best skill monkey ever. This seems really strong. I would take Skilled. Is Skilled already like that? I think Skilled is already like that, isn't it? Yeah, any 3 skills of your choice. But the fact that it's repeatable is a big deal, in my opinion. You could take Skilled as a human and then take Skilled again as a background and then take Rogue, and you would start with everything. I'm doing that. If we play 1D&D, that's my first character. A rogue with skills twice. All right, Tavern Brawler. Do they make you worth anything? When you hit with your unarmed strike, You deal D4 plus strength. Okay. When you roll damage, you can reroll ones. Okay. So that increases your damage by 1/4 of the time. It increases your damage by an average of 1.5. So that means that it increases your average damage by less than a half. Why don't you just make your damage D6 and then don't reroll? That's effectively the same thing. Well, actually no, it would be stronger if it was a D6. I would just make this a D6 and not do rerolls. Although, I guess if you do it this way, there's a reason for a monk to take Tavern Brawler. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can deal damage to the target and also push it 5 feet away. Yes! Free pushing, free force movement. Furniture as weapons. You can wield furniture as weapons using the rules of the Great Club for small or medium furniture and the rules of the club for tiny furniture. These guys know how Jackie Chan works. Tough. Twice your level. So it's just normal tough. Not repeatable, thank goodness. Rules glossary. Alright. An arcane spell draws on the ambient magic of the multiverse. Bards, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards harness this magic, as do artificers. Why did you have to, like, single out artificers? Why? Oh well. This cheats a little bit with my definition of a warlock, which I consider to be more of a divine class. But that's just me being a little sneaky and cheaty. Artisan's tools are a category of tool with which a character can gain tool proficiency. That's fine. Ignore the prices. Those tools now cost 50 gold each. All artisan's tools are now the same. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong there with reorganizing the economy a little bit. The economy is usually setting specific anyway. Creature types. Every creature in D&D, including every player character, has a special tag. Oh, we've already mentioned this. We've already seen this. Okay, D20. The term D20 test encompasses the 3 main D20 rolls of the game: ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. If something in the game affects D20 tests, it affects all 3 of these rolls. The DM determines whether a D20 test is warranted in any given circumstances. To be warranted, a D20 test must have a target number no less than 5 and no greater than 30. I remember this. I don't know why the DC is I don't know why there's like a level a difficulty cap. Like the word must is so strange. Even after all that, nothing gained. That's so weird, Felix. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna go. I'll submit a ticket after this stream because I know you love your channel points. If you roll on a 120, if you roll on one of the D20, the D20 test automatically fails regardless of any modifiers to the roll. This was something that people didn't like. People didn't like how now you can crit fail skill checks and crit fail saving throws. If you roll a 20 on the D20, the D20 test automatically succeeds regardless of any modifiers to the roll. A player character who gains inspiration when rolling the 20. A player character also gains inspiration when rolling the 20, thanks to the remarkable success. Rolling a D20 doesn't bypass limitations on tests such as range and line of sight. The D20 only... I see why they have these DC limits now. Because if you determine that the difficulty class of a test is greater than 30, then you cannot try a test, which means you cannot succeed by rolling 20. So the DC is higher than 30, like to punch through a stone wall or to seduce a dragon. The DC for that is probably higher than 30. So you don't roll a test, you just fail. I see what they're thinking of when they do this. They want to normalize the DM thinking and using common sense instead of having players roll for everything. I'm not gonna say that it's good design yet. I have to think a bit more about it, but I really understand what they're going for here. And it's like, they put a lot more thought into this than I think people give them credit for. I'm being like the naysayer of naysayers in the D&D community. Yes. Exactly. And then all the players are just like, are they hot though? But are they hot? Yep. Exactly right. Weapons and unarmed strikes have a special feature for player characters. Critical hits. Wait, why are unarmed strikes... unarmed strike is a weapon attack, in my opinion. I think so. But they're probably not weapons. Yeah, I know. No. That's exactly it. That's exactly it, Felix. No. You're nat 20. Did I ask for a D20? Did I ask for a test? I did not ask for a test. Sit the fuck down. Sit the fuck down. I did not ask for a test. No. Put that dodecahedron away. That's what I want to see. That is what I want to see. All right. If a player rolls a 20 for an attack, the attack is also a crit hit, which is the extra. We roll the damage dice of the weapon or arm strike the second time and add the second roll's extra damage. 2d6 plus 6 modifier. Yep. Okay. Fine. A divine spell, a gaming set. Gaming sets are awesome. They cost 1 gold a piece. I will choose to ignore that because some games are very expensive, as any gamer here would know. Oh, they changed the grappled condition. I love grappling. Okay. While you're grappled, you experience the following effects. Your speed is 0. You have disadvantage on attack roll against any target other than the grappler. Like that. Movable. The grappler can drag or carry you, but the grappler suffers from slowed condition. So now there's a condition for being slowed. Unless you are tiny or 2 sizes smaller than the grappler. So that means that if I'm tiny and you're tiny, we can grapple each other at breakneck speeds. That's kind of cool. It's a little silly, but kind of cool. While grappled, you can make a dexterity or strength saving throw. They're saving throws now. Against the grapple's escape DC at the end of each of your turns, ending the condition on yourself on a success. This is good. This is actually good. This makes grappling better. This is a buff to grappling, and this is why. More people are going to be proficient with either strength or dexterity as a saving throw, but the people who are proficient with those saving throws are typically also proficient with either athletics or acrobatics. And sometimes they're experts at athletics or acrobatics. So you cannot be an expert at saving throws. Yep. The clear jar trick. I do love that. That bard is now part of the dragon's horde. And will slowly starve to death because the dragon does not understand that you can't eat gold. But yes, my curiosity is, what is the grapple's escape DC? What does this mean? That will determine whether or not grappling is better with this condition. So far, it looks good if the grapple escape DC is based on the athletics check that was made. If it's like a flat DC, then immediately this becomes kind of like not good. Incapacitated. You can't take action to reactions. Your concentration is broken. You can't speak. If you're incapacitated when you roll initiative, you have disadvantage on the roll. That's what surprised is now? Disadvantage on initiative checks? When you have inspiration, inspiration is now a condition. Or no, it's just a thing now. You can expend it to give yourself damage on advantage. You must decide to do so before rolling the die. Ooh, an inspiration nerf. Exciting. Gaining inspiration. The main way a character gains inspiration by rolling a 20. The rich get richer. The DM can also award inspiration to a character who's done something that's particularly heroic or amusing. You can never have more than one instance of inspiration. I choose to ignore that. If something already gives you inspiration, you can give inspiration to a player in your group who lacks it. If you still have inspiration when you start a long rest, you lose that inspiration. They don't carry over. Gonna try a new tab. All right, good luck, Felix. I hope it works out. A long rest, extended downtime, 8 hours long. Sleeps for at least 6 hours. Performs no more than 2 hours of light activity, such as reading, talking, eating, or standing watch. Okay. At the end of the long rest, the creature regains all lost hit points. Also regains spent hit dice of the absolute. Okay, this seems totally fine. If a long rest is interrupted by combat, 1 hour of walking, casting spells, some activity, rest comes from the bed. Started. Blah 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 blah. I guess the only rule is there you get the benefits of a short rest, but everything else here seems the same. Instruments are now 20 gold. I choose to ignore that. Primal spells. The slowed condition. You must spend one extra foot of movement for every foot you move using your speed. So half speed, basically. Attack rolls against you have advantage. Let me check the grappled again. Grappled. Okay, grappler only suffers the slowed condition while moving, which is important. So he gives advantage on attack rolls while moving in case of like opportunity attacks and stuff, but not after he stops moving. That was important to know. You have disadvantage on dexterity saves. Okay. Cool proficiency. If you have a proficiency bonus with a tool, you can add it to say if you have proficiency in a skill that is used with that check, you have advantage on the check. This is the thing that I saw. This is Wizards of the Coast fucking chickening out. Have I ever completed the thumbnail of the Left 4 Dead 2 collab? Yeah, I did. It's on my YouTube. You mean the one that you were in? Yeah, it's there, and you're on it. This functionality means you can benefit from both tool proficiency and skill proficiency on the same ability check. I begrudgingly think this is a good idea, even though I don't like it. It does mean that you get more opportunities to flaunt your tool proficiencies, but it normalizes thinking of everything in terms of skills instead of tools. I hope that the fact that backgrounds introduce a new tool, no matter what background you choose, is going to have players thinking a lot more about the tools they have at their disposal. All right, new rule on Tremor Sense. A creature with Tremor Sense can pinpoint the location of creatures and moving objects within a specific range. I know. I'm glad you like it, Felix. Pinpoint the location of creatures and moving objects within a specific range, provided that the creature with Tremor Sense and anything it's detecting are both in contact with the same surface or the same liquid. Tremor Sense can't detect creatures or objects, and Tremor Sense doesn't count as a form of sight, which is interesting. That stops you from casting spells that rely on sight. I like this. The way Tremor Sense was described in the old 5th edition was really weird. It like was still blocked by objects and stuff. It was weird. I like the way that Tremor Sense is described here. Unarmed strike. An unarmed strike is a melee attack that involves you using your body to damage, grapple, or shove a target. Your bonus to hit is your strength plus your proficiency. On a hit, your unarmed strike causes one of the following effects: either damage, 1 plus strength, grapple, the escape DC equals 8 plus your strength plus your proficiency. No! Grappling is not as good anymore! Okay, so if we think about this, it means that you can't be an expert at grappling because the only thing that is impacted by it is your strength. It also means that it also forces you to hit armor class with an unarmed strike instead of using an athletics check. I don't know. I think grappling is made worse from this. And grappling was already, I think, relatively weak. Exactly. So the fact that it got weaker now, I'm not a fan of it. The only way this is justified, because I understand the premise, I understand the concept, because like grappling by itself as a core rule is not meant to be that great. You usually just want to beat the shit out of your opponent. So I can concede that grappling should generally not be crazy strong, and people should have the ability to escape grapples, even if you're an expert in athletics. The only way I accept it mechanically and thematically is if they have the grappler feat. Remember the grappler feat? Does anyone remember the grappler feat? No one remembers the grappler feat. If they have the grappler feat and just like buff the crap out of that and make it incredibly good, make the grappler feat super duper strong, then grappling is probably okay. But right now with no grappler feat, grappler is really weak and I don't like it. But I'm reserving my judgment until after they come up with new feats or features, specifically a grappling class or a grappler feat that makes grappling much stronger than the default rules. Because the average person, even if they're built for strength, probably shouldn't be grappling. And I'm okay with that. And we talk about spell lists. Woo! They go through all the spells. They only go through the first level, zero and first level spells here. That's it. There you go. So feedback. Going quickly down the list. One. Humans. Still just getting one skill of your choice. Still getting one feat of your choice. And they get like inspiration, which is just a reroll. So it's all the generically good stuff that humans always get. In particular, I'm scared of the feat. Feats naturally power creep. Our natural weapons, unarmed strikes. I believe it's the opposite. I believe unarmed strikes count as a natural weapon. But natural weapons are not necessarily unarmed strikes. No more summoned cows grappling. You're right, you need a hand free. You need a hand free to grapple the target. I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. That'll do it. So, cows can still shove. That's pretty good. Probably makes more sense instead of a cow biting you and using their like non-existent jaw pressure to drag you, just like taking their heads and just headbutting you constantly. Can you cast a spell with a spell hand? Do you mean like a mage hand? Because no, not even a little bit. You need a free hand to cast a spell. And the free hand, usually the hand needs to be either free or holding the material component that you're using to cast a spell, like a wand or something. Well, that's not true. Some spells don't need a somatic component. Somatic component, by the way, is what you need. Spells have three components. They're either verbal, somatic, or material. If they're verbal, it means you need to be able to open your mouth and say the magic words. Somatic means that you need to be able to have a free hand to wave and do a special magical gesture. And then a material means that you need some object, usually a special consumable component or a focus to channel your magic through in order to focus the energy. Like a wand or an orb or like the eye of a newt or something, right? And the only rule is that the hand you use for your somatic gesture can also be a hand that holds the focus or material component. Strength focus mage. The log is my focus, and I cast Crush. I haven't heard of that spell. That would be a very potent use of Booming Blade. The boom is the tree. Would that work? Would a tree be... Would you buy a tree for at least 1 silver? I'd say that counts. It's just a big club. But yes, those exist, Felix. In fact, we have a character who's kind of like one of those. Her name is Penelope, and she is a blade singer. She casts magic, but she also has a rapier that's like pew kapow, and she dances. She's more dexterous than strength, but kind of a similar concept. If a tree booms in the forest, is anyone around to take thunder damage? So first feedback. Humans, I don't like that they get a first level feat. I would really like to see them do something unique with humans and not have them be a catch-all. Second, major feedback. I do not like how backgrounds have a hard +2 and a hard +1. I would rather them list 2 ability scores and you choose which one gets the +2. So that's the second major feedback. Third feedback, the grappled condition is super weak, and you need to have the grappler feat to make grappling worth anything, aside from very incredibly niche usage. And that's mostly what I have here as far as feedback for 1D&D. Now they're working on this for like the next 1.5 years at least, so I know that they're not done. So I'm reserving judgment on a lot of this stuff. But Wizards, hey, if you could hear any of this, ring me up, all right? I'll send you my resume, all right? Let's talk. Let's have lunch. All right? For everyone else who's listening, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to rest my voice. I think this is the most I have ever talked in a stream, ever. And that's saying something, considering I DM Dungeons and Dragons. Let's go ahead and find someone to raid, shall we? Let's see. What do we got? Come on. Please load. There you go. Wow, they loaded everyone at once. Is that... No. Hey! My boy Tira! I'm collabing with Tira later. Let's see what he's up to. Let's mute this before I get DMCA'd by an ad. Ads! He's playing BPM! We're gonna send Tira some love, okay? Oh, feel free to do so, Felix. But before you do that, please join us for the raid and see if the raid gives you any of those necessary channel points. What's our raid message? I'm gonna say one raid. One Dryad raid. And the BPM is going to be butts per monkey. Here's our raid message. You can use Tomb Raid as well, or Twitch Raid if you don't have my rage emote. What I might do, I really want to switch this around and have this be a follower emote, so all my followers can raid with me. Although follower emotes cannot be used outside of the channel, so I guess that doesn't do anything. Never mind. All right, tomorrow I'm hanging out with this motherfucker. We're playing Crypto the Necrodancer. I hope to see you there. But until then, peace out, Cub Scouts.